You're smoking some of the best dope God ever put breath in.
Thank God it's Friday!
Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys on a beautiful Friday day in America. Did I have an operation yesterday? Yes. Am I still on the air today? Yes. Was the Operation Hope? Maybe.
Was it?
No, it was a knee operation, but I am hopeful about it. Okay, so guys, huge show today. Look, the other day we did a poll on who's the worst Trump administration official. I feel like we could do that poll and just rotate them every day, because today Kash Patel is in a lot of trouble for, again, doing outrageous things for his girlfriend with our money, of course. And Pete Hegseth might be impeached, kind of. You'll see in a second, and it should be in massive legal trouble for murder. So we'll get to that in a second. But to be fair to Kash Patel, they caught the pipe bomber, the January 6th pipe bomber, and I will give him some credit. I'm going to give credit to surprising people on today's show. I'll give you a teaser on that in a sec. And Kash is one of them for catching that guy. On the other hand, it turns out he was a Trump supporter, which, like, if you go on social media, all the Trump supporters are like, no way, no way, Antifa.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever. Anyway, we'll get to that story. And the people I'm gonna give credit to is CNN. Wow, what a great piece of reporting. So can't wait to tell you about that later in the program. All right, John.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's jump into it and see if Pete Hegseth earns any of your credit as we start with the story.
What exactly did you see in terms of the video of the second strike? Were there survivors?
I saw two survivors trying to flip a boat loaded with drugs bound for the United States back over so they could stay in the fight.
That's patently ridiculous. I mean,
That's not true in your view.
Gosh, Admiral Bradley didn't even pretend that was the case.
That at the end there is Representative Adam Smith pouring cold water over Senator Old St. Nick's lie there, that he saw these two survivors of the initial strike against their supposed drug boat desperately trying to turn it back over so they could, like, dog paddle the drugs to the US coast or something. Absolutely absurd, a complete fabrication. Tom Cotton should be in trouble over that. But we'll get to more of what's come out about those strikes and how much worse, I would say, implicated Pete Hegseth is. Before we jump into the specifics though, Cenk, what do you make of the Tom Cotton of it all?
Yeah, so now that the representatives have seen the tape of what happened and Admiral Bradley has testified, some things are much, much clearer. How long between the two bombings, for example? How clear was it that it was intentional murder? We have those details for you. Now there's no question about them. But also, there's something in this report, unfortunately, that might let them all get away with it. So I'm going to explain that one as well. So let's get you all the story details first.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what that is, because as I've been trying to caution people as we've been talking about this all this week, the argument right now is over whether those last two men were murdered. I just want to remind everyone, the first 9 men were murdered. Tom Cotton is a pathetic weenie of a weasel saying they were trying to get back into the fight. There's no fight. There's no fight because this isn't a war, and they're not combatants, and it's not a warship, and they didn't have weapons, and it wasn't self-defense. This is just murder. It's no different than if they started going around the streets of the United States and shooting suspected drug dealers, which perhaps in the next 3 years we'll get to that. Everyone just prepare yourself. But that said, I'm sure you've all heard that there are some Republicans interested in investigating all of this. Obviously, Senator Tom Cotton is not one of those, and he is not the only one that thinks that all of this is actually awesome and totally cool. Here is Representative Rick Crawford.
We're dealing with a vile element here, and they were, as my friend Senator Cotton characterized, they were trying to right that ship. It was still laden with cargo because it was strapped into the boat. They were potentially signaling other vessels in the region. We don't know if they had access to SATCOMs or not, but as he characterized, still in the fight.
Again, there's no fight, and there's been no claim that they were contacting other ships, or the insane idea that they would have been picked up and the drugs still would have been shipped off, as if we with our hundreds and hundreds of Navy ships couldn't have gotten there first and captured these people rather than just murdering them. It's all ridiculous. And we're gonna go back to Representative Adam Smith responding to what you just saw.
There was no way they were turning this boat back over. The boat was completely disabled, and Admiral Bradley admitted that. It was drifting with the current. It was going to go wherever the current was going to take them. And I don't know, I didn't see all 48 minutes between the first and second strike, maybe for the first 10, but it appears that the boat was split at least in half. I mean, there was this tiny little bit of the bow that was still, capsized. They weren't trying to flip anything over.
Yeah, and look, these guys, they're not even, it's not even that Admiral like Bradley came up with an insane cover story and these two Republicans we showed you are just going along with it. They're just making up extra stuff that they weren't even briefed on. And they saw the video. There was no evidence presented of any radio or communications devices, anything like that. They're just, I guess they believe that they're fully safe. They can make up anything they want, say anything they want, and there's gonna be no consequences if what they're doing is defending the administration from, I think, some very justified scrutiny. We have more details, but Cenk, what do you make of all that?
Yeah, so now we know the boat was basically broken in half, and there was no radio, there was no telephone, or nothing. They couldn't get in touch with anybody else. As John pointed out, there's no weapons in the first place. No, and I couldn't agree more with John. The first 9 are murder, of course. 21% of those boats that are stopped have nothing to do with drugs. Now you can say, hey, look at that. You know what? 8 out of 10 times they are drug dealers. First of all, that is not a justification to murder someone. Otherwise, we could just go to a suspected drug dealer in the street or a convicted drug dealer and just shoot him in the head. And we don't do that in America. That's not anywhere near what we normally do in America, right? Even if they're convicted, you can't shoot them in the head or drop a bomb on them. Like, this is what I mean by the Israelification of our policy. Like, now when we drop bombs on people, they're like, well, that's not murder. Yes, it is. That's, if a terrorist does it with a gun or a sword or something like that, then that's murder. But when we do it with a bomb, it's not murder. That's lunatic talk. It's definitely murder. But on the 2 that are defenseless, we have such clear laws in America and in our military laws, not Venezuela's, not anybody else's, that says so specifically, not just that you cannot kill people who are defenseless, but also says that people who are shipwrecked cannot be killed. And now that the congressmen have seen the video, there is absolutely no question. There is a 0% question that they were shipwrecked, and we killed them anyway. So that's not the question at all. And if you hear people like Tom Cotton or anyone else defending that, they're either liars, pretending that there was a radio, pretending there was weapons, pretending there was a fight, pretending all this nonsense, or they'll just be honest with you. They'll be like right-wing media or whatever and go, yeah, we murdered him, who cares? You know what, they were gonna kill us, man. Those boats can go about 100 miles. US is 2,000 miles away. None of those boats are even coming to America. The whole thing's a lie. Okay, so lie on top of lie to justify needless brutality. But for what? For what? To invade Venezuela so that the multinational oil corporations can steal their oil. How many times have we done this? And by the way, if you don't know, we did this in the 1950s to Iran. And you know what happened? It created such enormous backlash that the Ayatollah got in charge. So that's how dumb this strategy is. It is an un-American strategy. It's un-American and it violates our laws very clearly on the most important thing, murder, okay? And it creates terrible counterproductive blowback to America, which involves getting all of us hurt, also that the oil companies who donated to politicians can get even richer when they're already the richest companies in the world. No, it is grotesque in every way. So now let's go further, because unfortunately there's a wrinkle here that Admiral Bradley talked about that might protect them all.
Okay, so this is, I guess, the fig leaf, I suppose. Bradley defended the second strike, saying he ordered it on the grounds that it appeared that part of the vessel remained afloat because it still held cocaine. The survivors could hypothetically have floated to safety, been rescued, rode around on unicorns for a little while, then carried on trafficking the drugs perhaps from the back of the unicorns. This is a fantasy that he is sketching out. And by the way, if you think that there's still cocaine on the vessel, there's no legal rationale for destroying it in that case. Again, like having drugs near you is not a death sentence, not in this country, at least. It's not supposed to be. And having this be the rationale for an administration that just casually let the ex-president of Honduras off after the mountains of cocaine that were brought in, this is all insane. And for any like young MAGA people who are like looking back on like past Republicans, like, oh, you pathetic neocons with your George W. Bush, just wake up, that's you now. You understand, if you're still on board with this, it's the exact same foreign policy, and for the same reasons. Trump was given massive amounts of money, as Cenk indicated, from the fossil fuel industry. He met with him in one of the most openly and brazenly corrupt calls for massive corruption during the last campaign that we've ever seen. He said he wanted them to give him $1 billion, okay? And why would they do that? They certainly would need something good in return. Perhaps we're seeing that now. And so all of this is utterly insane. But I would remind everyone, Cenk, like I made, the reference to, and you did too, to just shooting drug dealers on the streets, or, like if they thought that a car had drugs in the trunk, can they bomb it? Can they send a Reaper at it? I mean, that seems ridiculous now, but remember, we're just in the first year of this administration. And you might recall, Cenk, years ago, Trump would talk about Duterte and him allowing cops to just shoot drug dealers on sight. And Trump loved that. He talked about that positively so many times. And when we would cover that, people say you're being hyperbolic. Obviously, he would never do that. Well, we have taken so many big steps towards that I think he could definitely fit that in the next 3 years of his presidency.
Yeah, no. That's what this is. That no ands, ifs, or buts. It's just, oh, I think there's drugs on you, so I'm going to kill you. Okay, guys, would it make it like, so this would be the same exact thing, but I feel like emotionally it might make a difference. What if we boarded the ship and then just executed each one of them one by one, bullet to the head? Because that's what this is. When you drop a bomb, you execute everyone on board. And we know they're defenseless. What are they gonna do against a bomb? Hold up an umbrella, shoot at it? No, they're defenseless and they're all gonna get killed. So yeah, Trump is doing Duterte. And then the next graphic shows you one source with direct knowledge of the briefing called that rationale about, oh, they're gonna flip the boat back, half the boat back over, they're gonna go find rescue and then continue with the drugs. They called that rationale effing insane. It is, and I don't want you guys to mistake what I'm saying. That is not the rationale that lets them off. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, so they might, if they were rescued at a later time, continue with drugs, which again could never reach America. And so how is that a justification for murdering them anyway? So unfortunately, John, the loophole is this: Admiral Bradley said in the hearings that he specifically asked JAG, that is the lawyer for the military, is this legal? And the lawyer said yes. Okay, now the lawyer is dead wrong. And this is really, really important for you guys to know this, because Hegseth pushed out the former head of Southern Command, who Admiral Bradley is now, because he showed concern over illegal orders that would be the equivalent of war crimes. And he's like, you're gone, you're gone. So the message was clear to everyone, Admiral Bradley, the lawyers, everybody. If you don't murder these people, we will end your career. So to me, if I'm on that jury, I convict Hegseth, I convict Bradley, and I even convict the lawyer, okay? But since the lawyer said it was okay, they're gonna lean on that so hard, and that's gonna be the excuse that they use to say, a lawyer said it, a lawyer said it, so we're all good. You're not all good. If a lawyer told you to shoot an innocent guy in the head, that doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah, and also, so we're supposed to believe that the admiral did not know anything about the rules of warfare when it comes to shipwrecked sailors. He's been in the military for how many years? He had no idea.
And an admiral.
Exactly, it's absolutely ludicrous. You pointed out that they'd pushed out the previous guy. I will remind everyone, he also cleared out the top ranks of the experienced career JAGs and replaced them with loyalists. For the same reason and in the same way that they cleared out the top ranks of the DOJ and replaced them with absolute loyalists. It's supposed to be a literal get out of jail free card. We put in total partisan hacks, and then they'll tell us we can do whatever we want. Whether it's in the military for the JAGs or the Trump administration with their executive orders or laws or whatever it is that they do when it comes to the DOJ and Pam Bondi. And then neener, you can never get us because we got some people to tell us that it was legal who definitely don't believe so and aren't really qualified to say anyway. It's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, John, one more quick thing about this. So first of all, I want to give credit to that admiral. US Navy Admiral Alvin Holsley was the one that did the right thing. And after that, he was forced into retirement. So somebody should go back and give that guy a medal. And on TYT.com, we're asking you guys, do you think Pete Hegseth is going to get fired over this or not? Now, don't get me wrong. When we ask that question, it's not like, Trump will find his moral bearings. No. But if it's just causing too much trouble, what they will likely do, one of our producers pointed this out in the morning meeting, and I think it's exactly right, is that they'll wait like 3 months and then they'll pretend for an unrelated reason that he wants to spend more time with his family and get rid of him that way because he's just too much of a hassle. Maybe. Or Trump is like, oh boy, go back in and murder more people. The oil companies want more, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not sure how I'd vote on that, but check it out on tyt.com.
Yeah, why don't we briefly talk about a little bit of the politics behind that? So there's this pending investigation of Pete Hegseth. Some Republicans seem a little bit interested in that. Perhaps if the pressure on the Republicans in the run up to the midterms is really bad on them, then they might take it seriously. But in advance of that, some Democrats, although certainly not all, are pushing for impeachment of Pete Hegseth right now. So we have Democratic Representative Shri Thanadar, who has announced that he's filing articles of impeachment already, both over the intentional murder of the survivors of their already illegal strike, and then also the Signalgate controversies, and God knows what else is going on with Pete Hegseth, what the scandal of the next month will be. But it doesn't seem incredibly likely to actually work out right now. Even Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries doesn't seem super interested. And even if you had all of the Democrats, which they don't appear to right now, you would need some Republicans on board, and I don't know who that would be at this point. I mean, even Marjorie Greene was the one most likely to disagree with them, and she's going to be gone by then. And honestly, this is an area where I don't know she would necessarily have much of a problem with what they were doing anyway. And so I just don't know that the math could end up working out. Now, the conversation around that, the investigations, particularly if the Democrats were to take over following the midterms and could do substantive investigations with subpoenas, could do questioning of people, maybe that generates enough negative news cycles for Pete Hegseth that Donald Trump, as you've alluded to, Cenk, decides that he's just not worth it. But in terms of like pushing him out through the process right now, that doesn't seem super likely.
No, probably not. And the guy who filed this is a bit of a clown. He also filed impeachment charges against Trump. And if you say, well, what's wrong with that? Way too early. Look, you've got to have some sort of momentum for these things. Otherwise, they become counterproductive. And so it's not like Trump hasn't already done 10 terrible things or et cetera, but he's constantly going out of order in a way that is counterproductive to try to get attention for himself. And he's a huge corporate Democrat and helps like the worst of guys while you're not looking. He's a huge crypto guy. So I wouldn't trust this guy at all. So look, it's not to say that Pete Hegseth shouldn't be impeached or can't be impeached at another time, but I don't think this is the right way to go about it. So but on the other hand, to be fair to the folks who are going after him in any way, shape, or form, I mean, is anything going to be productive? Can you get, can you really? And John, maybe that's the last question here, which is that I was already surprised that some of the Republican legislators showed concern about this. I've never seen them care about morality in my life. I don't mean right-wing voters, I mean the politicians. And so I didn't know what was going on there, but it seems like they're closing ranks again and all, oh yeah, we're gonna flip over the boat and blah, 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 blah. And then, and then somehow an eagle was gonna land with rifles and it's that, right? So I think the only way that any of this comes to fruition is Trump thinks it's too much bad press, or magically enough Republicans gain a conscience in Congress, but that seems near impossible.
Yeah, and even like, as I mentioned, the example of Marjorie Greene, like that's somebody who was starting to distance herself, was getting some positive, press from it, and then immediately left. I don't know that that necessarily inspires a lot of the others to follow suit if it seems like a path to, potentially losing your seat. In any event, yeah, I think that it could be that Donald Trump is already, his polling is absolute garbage. It's dog crap. He's terrible, and it's only going to get worse from here. It could be that as we get closer and closer to like undisputable lame duck status, the stuff that they're doing to radically and unconstitutionally increase the power of the executive branch starts to look less like a convenient thing to have your patron be able to do, and more like just more potential presence that you're handing to the next administration. Like the Supreme Court's like going to be looking into, Trump being able to effectively just get rid of like independent agencies. Well, that's good for Trump now, but it's also potentially pretty good for a Democrat, including a progressive Democrat, if they wanted to use that new power, or if they, decided that there's some upstart militia and they just don't want to deal with it anymore, so they just bomb them in the woods of Michigan or something. Like all this stuff they're signing off on doesn't just end the day Donald Trump is no longer in power. As much as they might want to hope that that's the way that it would go. I hope that there are a few with a little bit of forethought that realize that their careers are definitely going to outlast Sleepy Don. His heart could pop any day, and they're gonna have to deal with the damage of what they're normalizing right now.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, John. I mean, first of all, it could be used to tread on you, and so be careful what you're signing up for. And number two is the midterms are now closer, and Trump is very unpopular. Like if you watch right-wing media, you might not know that, but the polling is in, and he was at -1 at the beginning, which is not bad at all. Now he's at -24. So that's why you're seeing Republican congressmen go, wait, did I say it was Trump? Did I say it was Trump? Well, I mean, only a little bit, right? Okay, I see you, dog.
Exactly. Well, I think we should take our first break because when we come back, we got a couple of stories having to do with the alleged pipe bomber from January 6th. We're gonna finally learn a little bit about that after this.
All right, back on social break here. Shop TYT has a Black Friday sale of 20% off. Wait, Black Friday was last Friday. Wrong. It continues to this Friday. So use the promo code thanks. Go nuts. 20% off. John's got the ceasefire T-shirt on, and that's in the Palestine collection. That one is actually all the proceeds go to Palestine Children's Relief Fund. I've got Operation Hope Up on that I'm wearing, and all of that collection, all of everything's 20% off. Okay, so go take a look at that, especially as Christmas is rolling around. There's my Operation Hope T-shirt. God, I love these. There's ones for Team Joy, etc. Right? So Eclectic writes in a couple of times on TYT.com. Cenk is #2strong, hosting the day after getting knee surgery. The question is, how much pain medication is he on right now, and will we be able to tell? No, I'm totally fine. I don't know what you guys are talking about, pain medication. I'm fine. Okay, I don't know. Is that what people that are too high do? I just made that up. Okay, John, you have a comment on that?
No, I was gonna ask a stupid question, but did they do a random MRI on you while you were in there? Was it really for the knee, Jake? No.
Yeah. Oh, I got tracking devices all over me. Bill Gates is tracking me as we speak. Okay. Anyways, no, I am on ibuprofen. That's it. So
That's ridiculous.
I know.
Yeah.
The surgeon was excellent. God bless his heart.
Wow.
All right. And Eclectic also wrote in, Trump replaced military jags with MAGA jagoffs. That's funny. Mr. Kitty says America establishes a global society and laws, but puts loophole to stay out of them. The only thing I'd correct, Mr. Kitty, is for America and Israel to stay out of them. Yeah, we did. We did a beautiful job. But part of why I love America, part of why our family moved here, is we set up human rights throughout the world and the international law and order that we have, and the idea that you're not supposed to do war crimes after World War II, et cetera. And then we go, yeah, except us and except Israel. We could do all the war crimes we want, but the rest of you should follow the law. Well, then that's not the law. That's just another way that you're using to dominate others and be held above the law. So we should be better than that. We are better than that. We got to get back to being the real America. Little Mac McGee says, we're getting too detailed about these things we do not get detailed about. The fact is, I am pretty sure, illegal to missile them in the first place. Doing it twice as they are hanging on, I mean, there is no question. That is absolutely right. And by the way, you could almost ask anyone that's ever been in the military. Yeah, of course there's no question you don't kill people who are shipwrecked. Textan says, maybe Tom Cotton is mad all the time because his pencil neck hurts from trying to hold up his pinhead. It's a fair theory. It's our job to share it. You guys can decide. Micrograms on Twitch says, I'm surprised this is even getting as much coverage and outrage from anyone in mainstream media after seeing how little they cared about kids in Palestine being killed for years. Well, that's the thing. So since America has harsher media coverage in America than Israel does. If Israel had done this, in fact, if Israel attacked our ship, USS Liberty, no coverage at all. Beloved Israel. All right, back on TOT, Cenk and John with you guys. Look, we're almost at December 7th. Oh my God, we got to go now. Okay, so that's when the Medicare enrollment ends. Our sponsors chapter, and the reason they're our sponsors is because we did a lot of research, found out that they're the best brokers. They have an internal system that allows them to be unbiased, and they actually do follow through on it, and it's been verified. So if you are on a Medicare plan, or you're about to go on a Medicare plan, or you have loved ones like I do who are on a Medicare plan, please call 707-TYT-HELP. 707-TYT-HELP. It's free, it takes about 20 minutes on average, and we're confirming this with our own viewers and members that are getting the same result. On average, they save you $1,100 per year. $1,100 per year. So call chapter at 707-TYT-HELP. All right, John, what's next?
Okay, let's get to a combination of both good and potentially very spicy news, starting with this.
As you all know now, early this morning, Brian Cole Jr. was arrested and charged with placing the pipe bombs at the RNC and the DNC on January 5th, 2021. This cold case languished for 4 years until Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino came to the FBI. Let me be clear, there was no new tip, there was no new witness, just good, diligent police work and prosecutorial work, working as a team.
Okay, so almost 5 years after January 6th, the FBI has announced that they believe they have finally arrested the man who planted pipe bombs near the headquarters of both the RNC and the DNC the night before the attempted insurrection. And it wasn't actually a cold case, as Pam Bondi lied and pretend that it was right there. But a new team comes in, they go over the same evidence that the prior team did. They potentially talked to some new people and maybe did a good job and potentially got the actual guy. Of course, at this point, it's still an allegation, but they believe that it's him. I'm inclined to think that they probably have good reason to believe so. That said, we're now finding out a little bit more about the guy who did it. And I have a feeling like the celebration in right-wing media about getting the guy is going to end up omitting some key details, Cenk, but what are your 2 cents?
Yeah, so my 2 cents are very different. On the one hand, I do want to give them credit. They got the guy, and the Biden team didn't get the guy. So that's a big deal. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. On the other hand, guess who he was supporting and which election he thought was stolen. And so that I've written about in social media, and I will tell you the right-wing reaction to that. It'll be interesting.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, so what do we know about this guy? So he was identified as Brian Cole of Woodbridge, Virginia, and it probably feels like to a lot of people, why did it take 5 years to find this guy? Obviously, there was a lot of work put into it, but it's hard because initially you see his photo right there, and then you see the initial shot. I mean, that could be pretty much anybody. That could be me. That could be Ben Mankiewicz. I mean, who's to say? It's hard. You have very little information there. You could potentially make out the shoes, and that's pretty much it. Nike Air Max Speed Turf sneakers with a yellow logo. I don't know how they decided that was a yellow logo from that shot. But they didn't even know at that point the gender of the person. Obviously, there were theories floating around for a long time involving Marjorie Greene. It looks like she's probably off the hook at this point. But anyway, 4 years after the incident, and now 4 years later, you can talk about this part of it in right-wing media. You're not supposed to acknowledge any of the rest of what happened on January 6th. All of that was totally cool, not a big deal. You can talk about this part though. So they did this probe. They had 1,000 interviews, 39,000 video files, 600 tips from the public. I mean, that's a lot to look into. There were a variety of different persons of interest that came and went during that time, apparently. This particular guy only really went on their radar in recent weeks, they say. Now, Pam Bondi claimed that it was a cold case, that nobody was really working on it under the Biden administration. And of course, she's gonna say that, and there's no reason why you should believe her because she's not a serious lawyer. She's a Trump hack. Darren Cox, the assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, said that FBI agents never stopped investigating the case. Okay, and they have to, I guess, be stopped. Like for instance, when they were stopped investigating Tom Homan and the bribery and all that. But anyway, so the new team comes in, they reanalyze apparently all of the different evidence, and they had time to do that because they were told not to look into the Epstein files. And so that provided the new information, I guess, and they were able to track down this guy, which is awesome. But as Cenk said, the one bit of information we have about a potential motive is that he apparently told the FBI he believed the 2020 election was stolen, which Cenk is going to say implies that he's a Trump supporter. And that's really the only thing that makes sense. And the right doesn't seem to be talking about that very much, which seems strange, especially considering we're coming out of months of being told that the left is purely violent. MAGA has never ever been violent. Ignore the rest of January 6th. That feels like a pretty relevant piece of information. And I feel like if something like that pointed towards the left, like if they were saying that Biden stole the 2020 primary from Bernie, I feel like right-wing media would be leading with it. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah. So first, the credit part, because we're the fairest show in America. So look, do I think that the Biden team stopped working the case? Very unlikely, because it's such a huge case. Who wouldn't want to break it? And that one of the conspiratorial theories behind that is that they knew that it's part of the deep state, and the FBI had actually done it, and that's why they didn't do work on it. Well, the FBI just broke the case, so I guess it wasn't the FBI, right? And this guy's not in the FBI, so the theories about the FBI and deep state were totally wrong. Now you can acknowledge that because it's Trump's FBI that caught the guy and is saying he was not FBI. Okay, so that was ludicrous. But did they get the guy? They didn't get the guy, right? Maybe I can't possibly know whether they worked hard enough on it or not. But results matter. The proof is in the pudding. The Biden team didn't get him, and the Trump team did, including, yes, Kash Patel. So my first time ever on the show giving credit to Kash Patel. Okay, so now. John I can see him in the Zoom going, yeah.
Unless they caught that guy stalking his girlfriend, he wasn't involved.
I hear you, but it's under his term, so it is what it is. Okay, so credit where credit is due. Okay, now the only thing we know so far about him is that he thought that the election was stolen. And he's apparently talked to the authorities after they caught him at length. And so we'll find out more as things go along. And by the way, if that turns out not to be true, we'll come back here and tell you twice as much that it wasn't true, right? Because we don't want to put out anything that's not true, right? But that is what CNN is reporting. That's what everybody's reporting, okay? So now the others are saying online, well, his parents were Democrats. And, okay, that doesn't prove anything at all, right? So, okay, so bottom line is, what I said on social media was, look, guys, before we knew what his motive was and if he was left or right or supported Trump or not, I said, if it turns out that he was on the left wing, Trump will call for potentially executions, blame everyone on the left, call for crackdowns against all left-wing organizations, etc. But if he was a Trump supporter, he might pardon him. Okay, and people are like, how dare you? That's outrageous. You can't. What do you mean pardon? Like, what do you mean? He pardoned everybody else from January 6th that were his supporters, including people who did very significant violence. And they were like, he didn't pardon them. He commuted their sentences and let them out of prison. Okay, yeah, that's because they were already in prison, right? So, look, a pardon would be outrageous. So I get it. He might not pardon him, but today I came out when it turns out we did find out that it was a Trump supporter. And I said, well, okay, what are you gonna do now? Are we gonna talk about, right-wing organizations? I didn't even get into that. And I'm like, so where's Trump? Is he gonna do a big thing or was I right? Let's find out because we don't know yet. Maybe Trump comes out and goes, this son of a bitch, so what that he thought I won the election? I can't believe he planted those pipe bombs. One of those, Kamala Harris walked 20 feet within one of those pipe bombs. She could have been killed, a presidential contender, and I won't stand for it, right? He's not gonna do any of that. You know it, I know it. If you're the most MAGA cat turdy dude in the world, you know it, okay? But of course, the right-wing reaction online has been, and you remember, of course, like this is a thing that people have talked about, that sometimes I get along with the right wing, right? If we agree on no war or Israel not controlling us, et cetera, great, right? Epstein files. But on this one, no way. They're like, yeah, right, you're crazy. I don't believe the source. I don't believe anything. No way. His parents are Democrats. Look at him. And when they say look at him, they mean he's black, okay? And et cetera, et cetera. And so they're just in a complete state of denial right now.
Yeah. Really fast, I see that Rudy Giuliani say that the Biden administration didn't arrest him because they orchestrated this. Okay. Kash Patel says it was intentional that they didn't catch this guy who evidently was a Trump supporter.
But like that makes no sense.
No.
Even if you look at what Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and the Trump administration are saying now, they didn't say that Biden administration orchestrated this. They're not saying that at all. They didn't say the FBI did it, et cetera. So Giuliani is like in la la land. Oh, that's another guy who was involved in January 6th and trying to steal the election for Trump. Also got a pardon. Oh, I know, I'm crazy for suggesting it.
Yeah, he'd never do that.
Crazy, yeah.
Well, why don't we turn to a related figure and their prior comments on this. Dan Bongino actually got called out on Fox News by Sean Hannity of all people over his past conspiracy theories about the January 6th pipe bomb incident. Take a look.
You know, I don't know if you remember this. This is before you became the deputy FBI director. You put a post on X right after this happened. And you said there's a massive cover up because the person that planted those pipe bombs, they don't want you to know who it is because it's either a connected anti-Trump insider or an inside job. You said that, long before you even thought of as deputy FBI director.
Yeah, that's why I said to you, this investigation's just begun.
Yeah, he didn't seem to like that question, that big sigh that he took. He probably didn't expect to get an actual tough question about his prior baseless conspiracy theories about this. Now, he's gonna try to distract and try to explain why it's totally fine that he'd say wild things like that before, and now he should be taken seriously in this clip.
We are pretty comfortable. We have our guy. I think as again, legal process starts to surface and information, facts start to come out, the public's going to be very comfortable with the investigation that was conducted under Director Patel and his leadership. He's been great on this. But I don't want to, listen, I was paid in the past, Sean, for my opinions. That's clear. And one day I'll be back in that space. But that's not what I'm paid for now. I'm paid to be your deputy director. And we base investigations on facts.
I love how casually he brushes off the fact that he was utterly dead wrong, and how conveniently he was dead wrong in a way that allowed him to tell his audience, who he knows at that time were feeling really uncomfortable about the fact that their side of the aisle had just tried and failed to overturn the government. And oh, what do you know? His gut tells him that it's actually a false flag. It's an inside job. He's just giving his opinion in a way that earns him attention, earns him a bit of market share, a little bit of money. Weird that that's the way that it works out. Now he's not doing the wild conspiracy theories, of course, but he does assure you, to subscribe for him to do that after he leaves the FBI. But actually, so like all of what you just saw makes him look terrible. The fact that he won't own up to the fact that he just baselessly asserted this stuff that he had no information on. He had no reason to believe that it could only be an anti-Trump insider or a false flag. There's no third category. There's no, in a weekend or in a period in which right wingers were beating cops to death, brought weapons, were trying to sack the Capitol. Maybe category C is that it's yet another of the hundreds and hundreds of violent right-wing insurrectionists. But he doesn't have either the intellectual maturity or the goddamn single testicle required to own up to the fact that he said that stuff. Instead, he thinks it actually makes the other side of the aisle look bad. Take a look.
And it was interesting. I was looking out in the crowd today at the presser, and I saw a couple of media figures who you and I both know who promoted the other scandal, the collusion hoax. And I thought to myself, the difference between us and them is, we evolve. As information and new inputs come out, we can produce different outputs because that's what we believe in. We believe in facts and investigations guided by facts.
Yeah, but Jake, there are some significant problems with that. When he said it's an anti-Trump insider or a false flag, he had no facts. There was nothing except a desperate need to tell his audience what he knew they wanted to hear. That's what it was. And we're focusing obviously on the pipe bomb. He doesn't care at all about what happened the next day on January 6th. He'll spread conspiracy theories right now that it was all patriots or Nancy Pelosi was actually the one that did it or whatever. He cannot actually own up to the fact that he was a rabid supporter of a violent extremist sect that tried to end democracy in America. And he wants to come out of this looking like the bigger man, the better man, the person who's interested in facts and the truth. He is a goddamn child. He wasn't qualified for that position, and he's damn sure not qualified for the position that he's in right now.
So some are saying that he kind of admitted to lying here when he was on the air. I'm not sure that he did, but what he is saying is, I was paid for pure opinions. But wait, your opinions have to arise from somewhere, right? And so then that gets to the really heart of the question of all of media. Where do you get your opinions? So for example, mainstream media gets its opinions from as Barry Weiss put it, between the 40-yard lines. You're only allowed to think certain things. So if something is critical of someone in power, they're against it and it won't be allowed on the air, right? So that's not really an opinion, that's a bias, and they don't share that bias with you. So then the guys like Bongino, when they're on the air, they're pure bias. They think their job is opinion to help my side, right or wrong, right? Here at TYT, we do it a little bit differently. We give you the facts, and the facts are non-negotiable. And then we go, okay, here's our analysis and context, okay? So I'll give you an example. The Epstein files. In the beginning, I was thought when Epstein died in the prison cell, I said, look, I don't know what happened, but I'll tell you ahead of time that if the camera in the hallway isn't working, then he was probably killed. If the camera in the hallway is working, it was probably suicide, right? And it turns out the camera in the hallway was not working. So, all right, so that adds to good context for probably killed. Now, there's a lot of other things that give you context on that, but it's still, not fact. It is our analysis, right? And then who did it? I said, who's powerful enough to be able to kill someone inside an American prison and get away with it? likely someone connected to the government, and not to Republicans or Democrats, but to the whole government. So an intelligence agency of some sort. But again, I said that's further speculation. Now, a lot more information came in, and we found out, oh yeah, Epstein was deeply connected to Israeli intelligence. Israeli intelligence officers would stay over. The former Israeli prime minister would stay over. We now know from his emails that he was coordinating to help Israel. So now the idea that it's Israeli intelligence that he was working with is pretty overwhelming, not definitively proven, but you see, I give you that example so you can see that's, in my opinion, that's the way to do it. Be honest with your audience, tell them what the facts are, and tell them where your analysis is coming from. But if all you do, and some on the left do this as well, let's keep it real. And the MSNBC's, now MS Now is a spectacular example of it. It happens online too. But some view their job and what they get paid for is propaganda. There he calls it opinion, but it's not really opinion if you're just making it up. And you're making it up every time to help your own side. It's not like Bongino every once in a while goes, you know what, I made up something to help the left. No, he always makes up something to help the right. Same thing with MSNBC, right? And a bunch of other guys. No, the Democrats are always right. The Republicans are always right. Okay, then you're useless. Like, you're not necessarily lying. I think you are. The content, my analysis is that you are, right? But I don't know what's in your head. But the bottom line is, he's saying, yeah, when I'm on air, you shouldn't trust me because I'm doing propaganda. And now he's confirming he's in the FBI. His earlier nonsense propaganda about how the FBI and the deep state did it to help Biden isn't true.
Yeah.
So by the way, if it turns out it catch the guys who actually did Epstein, and it turns out it was the CIA and Mossad had nothing to do with it, what would I do? I'd come out and go, hey, look, here's the context for why I said that, but it turns out it was wrong. Now we know the reality, and here's what it is, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, but to them, they think it's weakness to do that. And the reason they think that is because they know that they were lying, in my opinion. They were, at a minimum, they were doing propaganda, right? And that's why they're insecure about it. Whereas we're perfectly secure in telling you what we got right and what we got wrong, because we're trying our hardest to get to the truth, irrespective of partisanship.
The last thing I want to say really ties together his weakness and his failure on both sides of the line that he's talking about. And on the commentary side, most of us are not, like, we're not full on journalists, we're commentators. We have a different set of ethics. But like, to me, the core ethical thing for a lot of people who just do commentary is, because everybody who does that can look out in an audience and can figure out roughly what they want to hear. If you don't actually believe it, but you know they want to hear it, do you tell it to them? And people like Dan Bongino will do it every time. And the reason that they do it and it works is they're telling people what they want to hear. And those people are not inclined to be like, wait, but does this person really believe the thing they're telling me that makes me very happy? And so they do it, and it's not just on the right. That's like the principal ethical, like, dividing line for commentators, is the ability to read an audience and whether you stick to your actual guns or you just say what you need to say. And so you might think, oh, well, that's fine. That's before. Now he's in government, and he just said in that clip, now I have to do investigations and facts and everything. Yeah, how did that play out with Epstein? Because you came in raring to go. You're gonna get to the bottom of it. Damn the deep state. I'm gonna find the truth. Oh, oops, Donald Trump is massively implicated. I don't care anymore. He did the exact same thing on the inside as he did on the outside. He did what he needed to do to maintain proximity to power and to not have the audience flee him. Telling them that it's likely a right winger that planted the pipe bombs would have lost him his audience on January 5th. And telling them that Donald Trump is actually massively implicated in the Epstein files would damn his future career. And so every time, both in media and in politics, he does the thing, no integrity, no backbone, no morals, no spine. He does the thing that he has to do to maintain a career. That's who he is.
Yeah, and look, guys, this is a little bit of, self-aggrandizement, but I think that most of the internet can agree, both supporters and detractors. If there's one thing about the Young Turks, we don't just tell the audience what they want to hear. I mean, we have gotten in a lot of trouble with our own audience many, many times because we wouldn't tell them what they wanted to hear. Facts matter. Facts matter, and you got to stick to them, whether you're in media or in politics.
100%. Okay, well, why don't we take our second break? We'll come back and do one more story.
All right, so you got a message for John Idarola?
Tell him to be nice to me.
All right, let's go to our viewers, our members at tyt.com. Pessimistic Progressive says, good question, John. Where were you and Ben on January 6th? What I noticed out of that is I like that randomly he threw in Ben Mankiewicz, but he didn't throw me in because that couldn't have been me.
Well, no, that guy was walking too fast and you had knee trubs. So no, for me, it was just who's the least likely person. I'm like, Ben Mankiewicz is not getting involved in any of that stuff.
He's saying I'm gonna get involved in the damn thing like that. All right, Navinik says, unlike the amateur Brian, Ben Mankiewicz would never get caught. Yeah, he wouldn't get caught because he would never do it. Never do anything like untoward for like. No. Why? You go, why? Anyway, over 9,000 writes in that coverage disparity shows just how much mainstream media counts on how much Americans have been led to fear and hate Muslims. Oh, referring to the boat bombing versus what Israel does. Yeah, no, look, guys. I mean, Drop Site News reminded me of the Helen Thomas firing a while back. Helen Thomas was maybe the most legendary journalist in Washington at the time. In her 90s, had covered infinite number of White Houses. She was amazing, and she questioned Israel's occupation once, and the pro-Israeli forces ran her out of town, got her fired, and tried to smear her reputation. If you cross Israel in American media, there's going to be a group of thugs that come for you, and almost every time they will get you. They'll ruin your career. That's why the press doesn't speak out. The press is the average guy who's not a pro-Israel radical that works in press is scared to death of the Israeli thugs that will absolutely destroy their career. Now, why haven't they been able to do it to me and Anna and Tucker Carlson? Because we have our own shows. So it's not like they're not trying. One day I'll tell you guys all the different ways that they tried, right? But it's just harder. But if you're in traditional media, you're like, there's no one you're more scared of than Israel. If you criticize them in any way that seems like that they can pretend is 1% wrong, that's it. Your life is ruined. So that's why you get critical coverage of America, but you almost never get critical coverage of Israel. On the other hand, CNN today with a great report, and let's see what happens to Jeremy Diamond. But anyways, we'll get to that later in the show. Okay. Nerd Ferguson says that guy was caught all because Bongino has been putting in long days going into work at 7:30. That's a clip we played for you guys earlier in the week. Alex is on fire too said, remember Marjorie Taylor Greene said, had she organized the insurrection, she would have finished the job. Okay, yeah, she did say that. Don Dada Dragon says, my take, the billionaires were scared of Trump at first, realized he has zero idea what he's doing, but is extremely petty. And after Trump's wild tariffs, they said, hell no, and are now actively trying to destroy him. Epstein leaks only happen when someone is mad at Trump. After Maxwell was moved, he had a bit of peace. Now, so look, yeah, I think it's a tiny bit more complicated than that, but also a tiny bit more simple. What is the thing that I said was the watermark? Once he passed the tax bill to cut their taxes, then he's on his own. And that's what happened. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and John with you guys. Also, Sneaky Dog Incorporated. I don't know how they snuck in here, but then all of a sudden they're Young Turks members and part of our community. So nice to have you here. Appreciate it. So hit that big beautiful join button. Christmas present to us, fine, we'll take it. And Ambidextrous Rex asks a good question. He's a YouTube member. Why aren't there TYT sweatpants? We're gonna look into that for you. Okay, that sounds good. Oh, by the way. Good question, especially because shoptyt.com is having a 20% sale. Black Friday doesn't end. Use the promo code THANKS and you're gonna get 20% off site-wide, everything that is there, except the sweatpants because they don't exist. Okay, all right, and then here's another way we're going to save you guys money. Noble Mobile, and this is actually saving you money, 20% off. I mean, if you were going to buy it anyway, right? But in this case, no, like the other day I talked to somebody who's paying $130 for Verizon monthly. Were you crazy? Go to Noble Mobile. It's $50 and you get money back. And on my first month, I got back over $10, even though I use bandwidth like crazy. So they're really giving you money back. It's gonna be less than $50. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. Make the switch today, same phone, same number, no hassle. My service is perfect, okay? I just pay way less. Save yourself some money for those Christmas presents and the stuff you're gonna buy at shoptyt.com. All right, John, what's next?
Sounds good. And that transitions very well into our last clip because people do need to save some money because of how expensive everything is. And even Fox is having to grapple with that. Take a look.
Schumer talking about high prices is insane. He made the prices high. But you know what? It's Trump's economy now. That's politics. He owns it now. And for better or for worse, it's going to be the Trump economy.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Jesse Waters is willing to admit that. I have no standards for him whatsoever, but it's gotten so bad. The polling is so indisputable about what the American people and even Republican voters think about the economy and who's responsible for it, that they have to accept that Donald Trump's responsible. He's not showing any empathy or any ownership. They kind of need to, or maybe their base will get as mad at them as they are at Donald Trump. Now we're gonna get into some more specific polls about where the blame is placed. But Cenk, what do you make of Jesse Waters admitting it?
Yeah, so I have a theory on why some people in conservative media and in politics are starting to slowly turn on Trump, and this is part of it. And Jesse Waters, yeah, credit where credit is due. He actually had a logical segment there on it, and including on what Trump should actually do, even though it's not what he was saying. The suggestion he made to Trump is not exactly accurate, but politically, I think it was smart strategy. So we'll break it down all for you guys so you know what I'm talking about. But the most interesting part is that they're beginning to say reality, which is not normal for Fox News.
Exactly. Well, let's take a look at what Politico found when they talked to people. 46% say that the cost of living in the US is the worst they can ever remember it being, a view held by 37% of 2024 Trump voters. So that's good that a little bit more than 1 out of 3 can admit that. Realistically, prices are higher than they were last year when they would have almost certainly said they were worse than ever. So a lot of them are still refusing to accept what is just numerically a fact. But more and more of them are waking up, and nearly half of the entire country says that. More Americans say that Trump holds most or all of the responsibility for the economy at 46% than say Biden does at 29%. And again, I think that even that should be way more out of whack. I mean, Donald Trump came in, he's been president for almost a year. He got his tax cuts, he's done his tariffs. If anybody has made the case that he should be responsible for the good or bad parts of the economy, he's run wild through the economy. So a lot, I think, are still sticking their head in the sand over that, but they do still more likely place the blame on him. 45% plurality list grocery costs is the most challenging thing to afford, followed by 38% who say housing costs, 34% who say healthcare. I would guess, Cenk, that is probably going to change rankings now that Donald Trump has forced the ACA subsidies to go away because he refused to give in on that. So now people are going to be paying, hundreds, thousands more on that. So that will probably change, but it's still bad for a lot of people. And what's fascinating is that obviously people are always worried about the economy, but as Harry Enton is going to describe in this clip, it is now utterly dominating people's most important issue polls.
What is the top issue that Americans say they are facing, bar none?
Yeah, you named it. You named it. I mean, ta-da! It's the cost of living, most important to you right now, 36%. What's right behind it? The economy, 20%. And then I combined here healthcare or Medicare and Social Security right down there, number 3, 17%. What do these all have in common? It's do, re, mi. It's all about the economy, spending, cost of living, entitlements, all about being able to afford things.
It's all over the place. And we're looking at, Cenk, probably a pretty difficult Christmas. Those tariffs are going to hit a lot of things that people like to buy as presents. So what do you think?
Yeah. So in the longer segment that Jesse Waters did, the correct advice he gave to Trump was stop pretending that the prices are not up. They are up. And why is that correct? And why is Jesse Waters saying it? Well, number one, Jesse Waters is saying it because he realizes that's not a thing you could lie your way out of, right? There's a lot of things you could lie your way out of, but when people go to the grocery store, they see the prices. So the more you lie about that, the more you lose credibility. And Fox News is the king of figuring out what you can lie about, right? So that's point one. And you could see it in the polling. Like their lies aren't moving the numbers at all. Like, so Trump keeps saying, no, the prices are not up. And people are like, no, they are up. I just paid the prices, I know, right? So number two, the real reason, the main reason why Fox News is turning around on this is because they saw the election results last month and the Democrats won everything. And then the Tennessee results came in a deep red district. They nearly lost in that district. And so that scared the crap out of them. So now they're like, okay, we might have to start jettisoning Trump because he's at minus 24 and these lies aren't working. And we're worried it's gonna burn down the whole Republican Party because the economy is by like overwhelmingly the number one issue, right? So that's why they're in a panic. And then he gave him advice on how to lie, basically. He said, just focus on the things you're good at, like energy prices. And why is he good on that? Because he gave the farm away to the oil companies because they were among his top donors. But gas prices are not as outrageous as they used to be or as some of the other inflation. So that's fairly good strategic advice, right? And then he said, okay, have a healthcare proposal and have, because people care about that, and to get rid of Obamacare, but to replace it with something, and have a proposal on affordability. Now notice he said proposals, because he knows they don't actually care about those issues. They're never going to pass them. If he cared, he would say, pass something that helps people's healthcare. No, he's like, no, pretend to care by having a proposal, right? And then we could lie around that proposal and say it's an amazing proposal. It would solve all your problems, but the dastardly Democrats won't let us pass it, right? And so pretty good strategic advice, all wrapped around lying, but that's their model, right? That's what they do. And so finally, he did have one thing that I think was a mistake, where Waters said, just talk about jobs. These data centers for the AI companies are creating these beautiful jobs. Oh yes, thank you, please do that. Because what's gonna happen soon is AI is going to wipe out an unreal number of jobs. So if they push their chips in on, oh, we are helping the AI industry create jobs, that will be an epic catastrophe for them. And that is the catastrophe we're all headed towards because the AI guys paid off everyone and certainly Trump and the Republicans. And so they're not gonna stop them or slow down at all. And we're gonna hit an iceberg of unemployment. And when unemployment and inflation happen at the same time, Trump's gonna just be, I think Trump's gonna be devastated. But he's not gonna make it to 4 years. Like if he makes it all the way to the end of his term and hasn't left office, he might be in the teens in popularity. He cannot handle the unemployment that AI is gonna create. He's not gonna know what to do and he's gonna make it much worse. So all of these like strategic things, whether they are politically savvy, true or untrue, are all gonna run into that AI iceberg anyway. And so buckle up, brace for impact.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we are out of time, guys. So when we come back, CNN with a brilliant report about Israel. Wow, that happened. I can't believe it. So we're gonna tell you what it is, and then of course we do have one more story about Israel, which is Eric Adams on his way out with an Israeli protection bill. These politicians are comical. Although I'm surprised he's not like, hey, everybody, I'm still mayor of New York. I'm still accepting bribes. Okay, so we'll do all that when we return. our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, you know, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing. I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan. Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
I hereby double down.
All right, welcome back to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Jordan Uhl with you guys. Jordan's also the host of The Insurgents. And of course, John Iadorlo was in the first hour as the host of Damage Report, which you can check out every day at 1 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and on tyt.com. All right, Jordan, what do you got for us?
Take a look at this.
A CNN investigation based on videos, satellite imagery, and eyewitness accounts points to the Israeli military bulldozing the bodies of some of those killed near the Zakim crossing. IDF whistleblowers who spoke to CNN also point to a broader pattern of the Israeli military mishandling bodies in ways that could amount to war crimes.
A damning new investigation has revealed even more potential violations of international law carried out by the Israeli military. CNN found that the IDF had a practice of shooting indiscriminately at aid seekers in Gaza and then bulldozing their bodies into shallow graves. We're going to show you some of the evidence, but first, Jank, your 2 cents.
So first of all, I want to give credit to CNN, an outlet I don't often give credit to, but here they does a brilliant job of reporting, and I'm curious to see if it's going to have any consequences for the reporters who did it, like Jeremy Diamond, who's been brave and covered Israel conflict, Gaza conflict, really, really well. Number two, when you get into the details of the story, you're going to see that the IDF are basically terrorists, and that's what we've been telling you. This is another story that proves it. If the roles were reversed, just think about it as Jordan's telling you the facts of the story. If Hamas had done this to Jewish Israelis, what would our reaction have been?
Yeah. Well, they highlight the case of Amar Wadi, who went to get a bag of flour for his family from an aid truck near the Zakim crossing in northern Gaza, but he never returned. His family still doesn't know what happened to him. His body was never recovered. But weeks later, someone did find his phone. The home screen had a message on it that read, "Forgive me, Mom, if anything happens to me. Whoever finds my phone, please tell my family that I love them so much." But Wadi is just one victim among the dozens of Palestinians who seemed to have vanished near Zakim, which CNN says could be explained by the IDF's alleged practice of bulldozing the bodies of the dead aid seekers, into unmarked graves. But why were there so many bodies in the first place? Well, CNN's review also found that aid seekers were killed by indiscriminate Israeli fire near the crossing. In fact, more than 2,000 Palestinians were killed by the IDF while trying to seek humanitarian aid in Gaza, according to the WHO, or World Health Organization. Here's more evidence from CNN's investigation showing that the IDF bulldozed areas where aid seekers were gunned down.
These are the roads where crowds of starving Palestinians swarmed aid trucks on a near daily basis, and where they were fired upon and at times killed by Israeli gunfire. We geolocated multiple videos of people being shot and killed to these bulldozed areas. The same areas where Palestinians said some bodies were left behind in the chaos. On August 9th, 31 hours after crowds are seen here, evidence of fresh bulldozing appears in the exact same location. This video shows just how close Israeli forces, including this D9 bulldozer, were to those crowds. This video appears to show the aftermath of Israel's bulldozing. Alongside a crushed, overturned truck, partially covered bodies of several Palestinians jut out from the earth.
And that incident wasn't a one-off. A half dozen local aid truck drivers who worked the Zakim route described scenes of strewn and decomposing bodies as a common sight, with Israeli bulldozers at times clearing the corpses into the sand. And this practice of improperly handling the corpses of Palestinians went well beyond the Zakim crossing. That's based on the accounts of IDF whistleblowers.
We spoke with 2 Israeli soldiers on condition of anonymity due to fears of retribution. Both described bodies of Palestinians being buried in shallow, unmarked graves in different parts of Gaza.
Essentially, the idea was to shove the body with a bunch of dirt, clearing the road, and push it to the sides.
And that was it?
That was it, yeah.
The grave was not marked?
No.
There was no identification process or notification process to any international or Palestinian organization?
Not that I was aware of, not in my unit. So essentially, we were never given any protocol or any order of how to handle any bodies. There was never once that anyone told us, if you have a body, this is what should be done.
So is Israel breaking the law? It appears so. According to international law, the warring sides should cooperate in burying the dead in a way that allows them to be identified, said Janina Dill, co-director of the Oxford Institute for Ethics, Law, and Armed Conflict. The purpose is to prevent the dead from becoming the missing and to allow for memorialization, chiefly by their families. Moreover, if bodies are deliberately mutilated or mishandled in a way that violates their dignity, this can amount to outrages upon personal dignity, which is a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. Jank, this is disgusting. This is heartbreaking. What do you make of this?
So there's three different components here. So first off, CNN reporting that IDF soldiers indiscriminately firing at people receiving food. It doesn't get any worse than that. So I studied the Srebrenica genocide, and the Serbs decided that they should starve the people of Srebrenica, and then provide them food, so that when they came to get the food, they would be easier to kill. And that's what they did, and that's among the reasons why it was declared a genocide. Now, 6,000 people died in Srebrenica. Well, about 70,000 people at a minimum have been killed in Gaza, but it's probably larger than that because of all the mass graves of all the unidentified bodies, as you're seeing in this story. So you know who indiscriminately kills people, innocent people, unarmed people, and CNN reporting all of the bodies were unarmed, seeking food. Terrorists do killings like that. That the definition of a terrorist is killing innocent civilians, and that is what IDF did in this case, and in thousands of cases of people seeking food. It is disgusting. It is genocidal. It's ethnic cleansing, and so there's no excuse for it at all. And then on top of that, they bury them in these mass graves to cover up their war crimes. It gets worse, guys, and I hate to do this to you, but the CNN story got pretty graphic. And remember, their sources are, in fact, IDF soldiers. So if you say, oh, you're a bunch of liars, well, okay, you're accusing the IDF of being liars. So, and I want to clarify one more thing. As you see some good IDF soldiers reporting on these war crimes, and obviously anonymously, otherwise they'd be shredded in Israel. They'd be like, why aren't you a terrorist like the rest of them? Murder the Palestinians. That is what the Israeli government is calling for, and that's why you're having this. The people who are the terrorists of the IDF are the commanders. The commanders who give these orders are like the leaders of Hamas. Well, they're worse than the leaders of Hamas. Empirically, they've killed what now, 500 times the number of children. They've killed 50 times the number of civilians, nearly 60 times now. And as we've seen from Israeli reporting, their civilian kill ratio is 83%, Hamas was 67%. In fact, IDF's civilian kill ratio is the worst of any terrorist group in the world. That is stunning. And then the last part of this is, as they remind you of an earlier story they did, that's why I'm giving CNN and particularly Jeremy Diamond so much credit on this, because it is really excellent reporting and brave reporting. Because when you do this, there are usually consequences to your career. So we'll look for that and we'll see what happens. But thank you for being brave and finally doing the things that we want you to do. You see all the time that I criticize, traditional media, CNN, etc. But that's only because they deserve it. If they deserve credit, I'm happy. I'd love to give it to them. I wish they did reports like this, not just on this topic, on all topics where they uncover things that are true and do investigative reporting. Then I would love to give them all the credit in the world. Okay, but the last part is their earlier reporting where they pointed out that the IDF had desecrated 16 different cemeteries in Gaza, where they dug up the dead and just threw them their remains all around. And they had no reason for it, none. It was just to insult the people of Gaza that will even destroy your ancestors. It's disgusting. When challenged on it over and over again, they're like, oh, we were looking for hostages. I don't know if they were laughing while they said that. So the IDF's actions in Gaza have been exactly what a terrorist organization would do. And and in fact worse. And so, and guys, we financed all that. We gave Israel $31 billion to carry out all of these war crimes. And that is a moral stain on our country. And they stole our money to do that. And I say steal because the American people are not in favor of this. Over 60% of Americans say we should not support Israel anymore. But 95% of our politicians funded by the Israeli lobby, 90% funded by the Israeli lobby, say we should. Whenever Israel wants to commit a genocide and wants to commit war crimes and wants to shoot innocent people getting food and then cover them in a mass grave, American taxpayers, our voters, should be forced to pay for it. These moral crimes should be on your head, America. That's what our politicians say, because they're disgusting, corrupt scum who work for Israel.
Yeah, the thing for me is, while you have these bright spots sometimes at networks like CNN or legacy outlets, Jeremy Diamond here in the blockade on Yemen that led to a famine and mass death that the U.S. supported the Saudis' enforcement of. Clarissa Ward did tremendous reporting showing the U.S.'s role in that. Jeremy Diamond here. What I wish would be for the rest of the outlet to recognize that and then allow that the reporting from their colleagues to inform how they operate on other shows. But still, we're going to see Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer, a handful of others treat Israel as a legitimate force in the global community. Your own colleagues are showing they're committing war crimes. They're committing crimes against humanity. They're bulldozing bodies into unmarked graves. What are we like? How can you see that from your peer, from your colleague, and then turn around and scoff at the suggestion that Palestinians deserve rights, that Palestinians deserve statehood? I mean, it's tough to celebrate CNN at all in this. Kudos to Jeremy Diamond, but it doesn't matter outside of that one segment because the rest of the network isn't going to go along with that. You have somebody who's doing tremendous revelatory reporting, and then that's it. It goes to the next segment, and then here's Randy Fine to talk about how we need to nuke Gaza.
Yeah. So look, I'll double down on that too. You're right. Sometimes CNN or other outlets will do good reporting, and then they'll memory hole it. They'll just bury it. We once did a protest in front of CNN's building a long time ago because they had a poll that showed that 70% of Americans wanted Medicare for all. And then the very next day, they came out on the air and said that Medicare for all was unpopular, right? No, your own poll said that 70% of Americans wanted. So Jeremy Diamond and others already did the reporting on the desecration of the graves, and so many others have shown that they consistently murdered people getting food. I mean, the guy had to write a message. Hey, I'm going to get food for our family who desperately need it. So if I get killed, please, know that. Who has to write a message before they're going to go get food that they might get murdered? Well, people suffering under a brutal, brutal terrorist state of Israel or any other state that does that. I mean, look, when the Serbs did it, we all admitted it, and there was no giant media complex going, that's anti-Serbist. No, the real problem is not the Serbs, it's the people criticizing the Serbs, you anti-Serbist. That's absurd, but that's what the rest of the CNN anchors will not only do, but I'm going to predict ahead of time for you. Jordan's right, they will memory hold us. Jake Tapper and Dana Bash and almost all of their anchors will go out there and pretend this report didn't happen, and they will pretend that the IDF and Israel are the good guys and are doing self-defense and all that junk, nonsense propaganda on behalf of Israel. And they'll go pretend that the Palestinians are the bad guys, Muslims are terrorists, and we're justified in killing them. It's disgusting. It's the exact opposite of what is true. And it's the exact opposite of their own networks reporting. And lastly, I want to give credit to everyone because we mentioned Jeremy a bunch of times, but other people who worked on this story should also get the credit. Lou Robinson, Yahya Abu Ghazala, Thomas Bordeaux, Nabir Salam, and Gianluca Mezzofiore. Sorry if I got any of those names wrong, but you guys are amazing, and thank you for being real reporters at a time where we desperately need it.
Yep. Gotta take a break.
All right, back on TYT. All right, let's go to Super Chat first. Box says, let us call them Geneva suggestions. Yeah, I mean, it's a good way of putting it. But they're not quite suggestions because they will be enforced against everyone that is not named, every country that is not named Israel or America. In Liberty and Guns We Trust said, yeah, it's bad. I found myself, Christian libertarian, defending Muslims more than ever lately. In America, liberty is extended to everyone, especially when times are tough and people are down. Well, I love you for that, brother. And so thank you for being open-minded and not falling prey to the propaganda. And honestly, 98% of the anti-Muslim propaganda in this country has been driven by the Israeli forces inside this country. They needed you to hate Muslims so that when they killed them, you would pay for it. Master Zen 107 said, still haven't changed my opinion. It's Bozo Netanyahu because dude's an effing clown. I'm not sure what that story, which story that's in reference to, because it was from earlier in the show, but it really applies to any story involving Netanyahu. So yes, agreed. Sean the Plant, oh, maybe it was the pipe bomb story, in which case, no, that is not Netanyahu. Okay. Sean the Plant says, love you guys. Thank you, Sean, appreciate you. Nov 1775 Jim says, I'm about 6 minutes behind. Republicans are only concerned because these strikes, those are the boat strikes, are gonna inflate their cocaine expenses. Maybe Don Jr. But I'm just kidding around. I have no idea what Don Jr. does. Bernie Knuckles on YouTube member section says, the administration needs a win to cover for the rest of the crap that they're doing. Yes, but I don't know where they're gonna get that win. So if they think the boat strikes are a win, I think they're very sorely mistaken on that. Yvonne U715M said, if anyone is interested, the European Broadcasting Union has given the go-ahead for Israel to take part in the Eurovision Song Contest. Spain, Netherlands, Slovenia, and Iceland are boycotting. Good for those countries for boycotting. Of course, Israel shouldn't be allowed to take part in international contests that are for decent, civilized countries. Israel is a terrorist state, and should ISIS be allowed to participate? Should Hamas be allowed to participate? Remember, Israel's kill ratio on civilians is worse than Hamas, worse than even ISIS. So, oh, but it's Israel. What does that mean? Oh, but it's a state. Well, how does that justify anything? Crypt Kill says Trump will pardon him with the January 6ers, referring to the pipe bomb guy. That's on Twitch. And he wrote that before I suggested the same thing. If Trump pardons him, it'll be amazing. But don't count it out. Rebel Dragon on TYT.com says that's why the numbers are so low. There has to be hundreds of thousands rather than tens of thousands murdered. Well, there are a lot of groups who believe that the number is well over 100,000 killed by the IDF in Gaza. It is one of the worst genocides of our lifetime. It's one of the worst genocides of all time because now they're at numbers that are staggering. So obviously there are worse ones like the Holocaust that are in the millions. But this is the conversation we're having. But we paid for this one. We continue to pay for it. I can't stand that they use our money to support terrorism. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. Box and Fat Satter, thank you guys again for gifting 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. You guys are amazing. We appreciate you. All right, Jordan, what's next?
Take a look at this.
And as I finish, I wanted to come back here to Israel and let you know that I serve you as the mayor, but I want to continue to have the title that's more important to me than anything. I'm your brother.
We have to be as intelligent and as focused, as strategic as possible. That's why I am signing an executive order today to deal with BDS, so we can stop the madness that we should not invest in Israel.
The outgoing mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, signed 2 executive orders this week in an effort to fight anti-Semitism across the city, when in reality, it's just another effort to shut down the pro-Palestinian movement in New York. Cenk, we've got more, but your initial thoughts here.
Yeah, so this is Eric Adams' resume, basically. He's saying to the next person who's going to hire him, which is almost certainly going to be a pro-Israel radical. Now remember, I served Israel and only Israel when I was in New York. And the last thing I did was I tried to shut up all the voters that would dare to oppose Israel. I destroyed freedom of speech for Israel. Please hire me. Please give me a lot of money. I served Israel loyally. You freaking dog. Okay, I have a lot more to say about that corrupt bastard in a minute, but get all the facts first.
So let's take a look at these 2 new orders. The first order prohibits city agency heads and staff from engaging in any policy that discriminates against the state of Israel, Israeli citizens based on their national origin, or individuals or entities based on their association with Israel. It also prohibits officials overseeing the city pension system from making decisions in line with the boycott, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) movement, which is something his successor, Zoran Mamdani, is a known supporter of. More than 750,000 city employees, retirees, and other beneficiaries carry more than $250 billion in global investments, including upwards of $300 million in Israeli bonds and assets, according to the mayor's office. On X, Adams wrote, "Executive Order 60 makes it clear. BDS has no place in our city. The movement is anti-Semitic in nature and discriminatory in practice. NYC contracts and pensions must serve the public good. Discrimination is illegal. Anti-Semitism is abhorrent." As for the second order, it would strengthen police enforcement outside synagogues and other religious sites. Executive Order 61 directs the NYPD to review the patrol guide to evaluate proposals to limit protest activity that intimidates worshipers at houses of worship. The First Amendment protects speech, but time, place, and manner rules protect the right to pray in peace. Adams added in his official statement, "New York City has always been this nation's melting pot, but too often over the last few years, we've seen those of Jewish ancestry be singled out and targeted. Today, we are ensuring our city government doesn't participate in that type of behavior, and we are putting in safeguards that protect New Yorkers' tax dollars and protect their right to practice their religion without harassment." Adams is pretty openly using the executive orders to taunt Zoran Mamdani, saying that if the incoming administration wants to reverse the orders, then that is on their watch. So now the question is whether or not Mamdani will leave an order targeting BDS, something he's openly supported, in place. There's also the question of whether or not he'll follow through on his promise to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. During the New York Times DealBook Summit, Netanyahu brushed off those threats and announced plans to visit New York. Take a look.
Let me ask you a separate question. We've long wanted to do one of these interviews in person right here in New York.
By the way,
and I
didn't answer your question, Andrew. I'll come to New York, okay?
And that was my question. Would you come to New York, given what the mayor has said about arresting you?
Yes, of course I will.
And you will test that? I mean, what is the thought about how that would work?
Well, why don't you wait and see? Yes, I'll come to New York.
I mean, Jake, there's a couple things here. We have these orders, curious what you make of them, but also Netanyahu, in conversation with Andrew Ross Sorkin of the New York Times, just flaunting an open warrant for his arrest.
Yeah, so many things here. First, let's talk about the clip that you just saw, and then we'll work backwards to Eric Adams. So Netanyahu in that interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin also said, relatively unchallenged, that Israel is still at war and he named about 6 countries that they are currently attacking, and he said they have a right to attack all of them permanently, and that the war is not over. Okay, so that apparently the ceasefire and the peace deal were total trash, as we told you. It's just Netanyahu confirming it. What the point of that is to get everybody to stop paying attention to Israel, because that was hurting their cause. So they're pretending the war is over, but no, the Greater Israel Expansion Project continues. And currently they're occupying parts of Lebanon and Syria as well. Our media almost never talks about that because they're in the Israel protection racket. In fact, Andrew Ross Sorkin should have been outraged by that and should have said, what do you mean you're still attacking 6 of your neighbors? That is wildly illegal, and et cetera. But no. He's not going to. He's always going to sit there and kiss Netanyahu's ass, as he says this. So, and Netanyahu goes, oh yeah, I control America. I'll come to New York. I'm the boss of the mayor of New York. Oof, I would love to see that showdown. And if Zoran backs down, I'll be so furious. Number one, if Netanyahu comes, definitely arrest him. There's an arrest warrant for him. He is not above the law, okay? But yeah, I would be shocked if that happened. If Zoran had the guts to, even Zoran had the guts to arrest him, because the rest of the American political and media landscape would rise up in their fury at their beloved Israel. And try to tear him down. So we'll see. But the BDS one is much easier. Zoran should immediately reverse that. And in fact, he should go further. So what Eric Adams' legislation is, or order is saying is that if you try to boycott Israel and you're, from one of the pensions or whatever else that the New York government handles, you're not allowed to do that, right? Zoran should not only reverse, but say, no, actively ban investments into Israel. Because right now, New York City has at least $300 million of people's pensions invested into Israel. And Israel, it's like saying, oh, no, in the middle of the Serbs doing the genocide in Bosnia or Srebrenica, yeah, let's work with the Serbs. Let's get them a lot of money. Let's take your money and give it to the Serbs. They haven't killed enough Bosnians yet. Right? They haven't killed enough Muslims yet. And that's literally what they're saying here. So of course that should be reversed. No one should do business with a terrorist government of Israel. Their civilian kill ratio is worse than any terrorist group in the world right now. And they've killed way more innocent civilians than any terrorist group in the world. In fact, I'd be shocked if they didn't kill more innocent civilians than all of the terrorists in the world combined in the last 2 years. So that's the state of Israel for you. It's a moral crime to do business with them. One of our members on Twitch, Microgram, says, why does the mayor of New York City have to, quote unquote, serve Israel? And that's a good question. That goes back to Eric Adams' first clip that we showed you guys. He said, as mayor of New York, I served you loyally, right? Something along those lines. You can go rewind and see the exact quote, right? Yeah, why are you serving a different country loyally? And that's because Eric Adams is deeply corrupt. So now, I don't say that just in relationship to Israel. He also, of course, was brought up on charges about being corrupt with the country that I came from, Turkey. So if I was like the Israel first biased radicals, I would say, no, that's anti-Turkish racism. You should let Eric Adams be corrupt with Turkey, and you should let him take all the bribes. Otherwise, you are discriminating against Turks, right? That's what all the Israel first a-holes do. They go, no, if you criticize this disgusting terrorist government of Israel, you're an anti-Semite. I'm so sick of their propaganda. And not because, okay, a group of dirtbags do it in America. So what? There's a whole bunch of dirtbags in America doing different things, right? No, it's because almost all of our power establishment are those dirtbags. Almost every cable news anchor, almost every politician is on the side of the terrorist government of Israel. So, and of course, at gunpoint, they make us pay for all their killings and all their genocide. And now when we say, hey, can we use our voice and our action as free Americans to boycott Israel? They go, no, there will be consequences. So we're not allowed to boycott the biggest terrorist in the world? By numbers, raw numbers, and as a percentage of civilians killed. We're not allowed to protest the government that is committing a genocide? It's insanity, total, utter insanity. And that's why I get so animated about it. If the power structure wasn't enormously biased and did the exact opposite of what is moral, then I wouldn't be as animated. Okay, so look, guys, this is last thing. In South Africa, obviously, you all know they had apartheid, right? If in the middle of that apartheid, what did we do? We did BDS. We did boycott, divestment, and sanction of South Africa. And it hurt their business interests so much that they got rid of apartheid. That is why Israel's worried about it, because their beloved business interests might be affected. So they claim that's the most anti-Semitic thing, to touch their business interests. That's insanity. That's not anti-Semitic at all. That would be like the white South Africans saying it is anti-white to do BDS on South Africa for apartheid. You're discriminating and being racist against the poor white people of South Africa who were just enslaving and brutalizing the black people. What's the big deal? We're the moral guys. And that is what Israel is. Not only the slaughter and the genocide in Gaza, but they have enslaved 5.5 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank for 58 brutal years. It is worse than apartheid because it never ends, and we pay for it. And then when you go to protest, they're like, that's it, we're gonna make it illegal, take away your speech rights, take away any rights you have as Americans, shut up and pay for our country forever and ever and ever, no matter what we do. And we've given them over $300 billion so far. Enough of giving all of these sick, disgusting politicians like Eric Adams, who's like, bribes from Turkey, bribes from Israel, bribes. That's all they care about. Get money out of politics. Otherwise, these disgusting creatures called US politicians will forever serve foreign governments and corporations that pay them those bribes. I'm sick of it. No moral person should do business with Israel. If you're doing business with Israel, you're pro-genocide, pro-slaughter, pro-terrorism, obviously.
Gonna take a break.
All right, on Super Chat, we got a Little Max Corner saying just a little support. You and the real reporters you talk about, Cenk. Also, make sure Anna knows she did an amazing job on Piers Morgan. Was so proud of her, and all behind the scenes at TYT. Take care, all of you. Proud of you too. So now, when Anna and I go on Piers Morgan or many other shows, they're putting up 2 Israelis against us or 2 Israel supporters because we're slaughtering them in debate, and so. And they put 2 to 1, and you know what happened in the comments section? The pro-Israel people, when Anna clobbered those 2, Israel supporters, terrorism supporters, the Israel supporters are complaining that Anna was bullying them. Oh, did you need to go home and cry to mommy because big mean Anna bullied you too? Because you're both psychotic genocide supporters? Oh, or maybe you shouldn't support genocide. Some other guy defended the genocide by saying, no, it's ethnic cleansing, not genocide. Do you know that that's not any better? Okay, all right. Leica Fox says, does Mamdani have the authority to arrest Netanyahu given that the US is not a signatory to the ICC? So now that's a good question. And that's something, if he's gonna come to New York, should be investigated before Mamdani takes any action. So that's super fair. You gotta have the right authority. You always have to follow the law. And if it turns out he as monstrous as Netanyahu is, if it turns out he does not have the legal authority to arrest him, then he shouldn't. Dev0094 says, truly the most moral army in the world. Isn't that amazing that our sick, disgusting so-called news industry in this country has consistently called Israel the most moral army in the world? What this hilarious piece of propaganda on behalf of another country and a special ally. What does that mean? They just make up crap 24/7 to support the country that they actually love, Israel. CK Progressive says, considering Mamdani is keeping Jessica Tish's NYPD commissioner. I have my doubts as to Netanyahu arrest would happen. We'll see. Rob 3 Chats first says Israel should be completely isolated and treated as a pariah. Of course they should. Look, America is nearly hopeless on this because our politicians are bribed because of money in politics. So Israel is going to be able to bribe them better than any other country or any other interest or the American voters. But the rest of the world that has not legalized bribery, of course Israel should be a pariah. They should be banned everywhere. Should Germans have been accepted into everywhere in the middle of the Holocaust? No, we should have all banned them to no end. Oh, if you say, oh, well, no, the Germans were worse because they killed more people. Okay, now we're having a relativity contest as to how many tens of thousands or millions of people you have to murder before you get banned. Okay, Kelly K. And by the way, Israel's definitely worse than South Africa. Israel has killed way more Palestinians than South Africa killed black folks. If I'm wrong about that, I'm so sorry, and I'll double check to make sure. But that is my understanding of it. But Israel can't be criticized. Kelly K say, hey, Cenk, I hope you're resting up from your knee surgery. I'm gonna run out of time. Virginia, South Carolina said, what about TYT leggings? We need workout gear. That's funny. All right, I'm out of time. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. I'm gonna read 2 comments from members on TYT.com real quick. Virginia and South Carolina said the IDF forget that Palestinians are seeds. They will never be erased because hope always grows. And Virginia, you're beautiful for saying that, and I hope to God that that's true, and that's certainly true, and that's why one part of the reason why watermelon is their symbol, but they are getting buried. And Eclectic Miscellaneous said, Donald Trump told you to reject the evidence of your eyes, ears, and wallet. It was his final and most essential command. Nice reference to Orwell. All right, Jordan.
We have details on yet another scandal involving FBI Director Kash Patel. MS Now reported this morning that Patel ordered the SWAT team he assigned to his girlfriend to drive her drunk friend home from the bar multiple times. We have more, but first, Cenk, why are taxpayers footing the bill for any of this?
Yeah, this one's easy. I only have 1 cent on this one. I think almost everyone, including the right wing, is going to agree with us. This is outrageous.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the details. Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, asked FBI agents on her security team at least 2 times, including once this spring, to drive her friend home. And agents objected to diverting from their assignment, said the sources who were granted anonymity to discuss non-public matters. But Patel insisted they do as Wilkins requested, and in one case, called the leader of Wilkins's security detail and yelled at him to do so. FBI spokesperson Ben Williamson insists this didn't happen, but MS Now reports that 3 people familiar with the incidents claim otherwise. Former FBI agents and senior law enforcement officials said it was already disturbing that Patel had pulled elite tactical units away from their SWAT mission to drive his girlfriend around town. But they told MS Now they were shocked that the director instructed tactical agents to use their time on yet another person the FBI had no reasonable duty to protect. Now, the girlfriend SWAT team serving as Uber drivers for drunk friends is just the latest scandal for an already embattled Kash Patel. Earlier this week, congressional Democrats launched an investigation into his use of a government jet to go see his girlfriend, who lives in Nashville. You flew there because your girlfriend was performing at a wrestling match on the campus of Pennsylvania State University, the Democrats wrote in a letter. After attending her performance, you used the government's jet to fly with her home to Nashville the following day. Your quote, date night had no apparent connections to your official duties. Now, the latest wave of negative press will put even more pressure on Donald Trump, who was already reportedly considering firing Patel, although he and the White House disputed that report. Time will tell. But Cenk, do you think Kash Patel is in the job come January 1st?
I think there's some chance that he is going to get fired because he's just causing too much trouble, right? And like this is not a thing that even the right wing would defend. So there's plenty of things like you kill Venezuelan fishermen or drug dealers in a boat that have no chance of reaching America, and the right wing might be okay with it, right? But there's some things they're not okay with. The Epstein files not being released, and wasting the FBI's resources on Kash Patel's girlfriend's drunk friends. I don't see anybody in the country supporting that, right? So look, we're the fairest show in America. I gave Kash Patel some credit earlier in the show for catching the January 6th pipe bomber, right? And that his FBI did it, and that is what it is, and credit where credit is due. But on this one, we've now reported a ton of stories about him using the planes for his girlfriend for date night. Now we're at the girlfriend's drunk friends, and it's humiliating and a terrible misuse of resources to send qualified SWAT team members of the FBI to go and be their drivers. And by the way, there's precedent for this. The only FBI director who's ever been fired from his job, actively fired, was because he used FBI resources, including planes like Kash has, to go on dates with his wife and holidays with his wife, and to use it to help his wife in a way that he should not have done. So if there's any kind of fairness or justice in this world, Patel will be fired for this. But for, in terms of will he be, Jordan, that's just a matter of Trump's calculations on what benefits him and doesn't. And Trump doesn't feel like he never wants to seem like he was pressured into doing anything. So he might let the dust settle and then quietly let him go. But then there's one other complication. They've got Kash Patel and Dan Bongino right now as hostages going, no, the Epstein files are perfectly clean and fair and everything is good. And so if they let him go, are they then gonna have an incentive to not spill the beans about what's actually going on with the Epstein files? I mean, Kash Patel, I can't imagine ever doing anything honorable, but that has to be some other consideration too when they're doing this, because they know a lot of where the bodies are buried now.
Yeah, that's a totally fair point. I mean, the one thing I think that could be a trigger for Donald Trump to fire Patel would be more and more negative press. I mean, this is somebody who really lives his life by headlines and how he is perceived. So if these stories and scandals continue to mount and it reflects poorly on Trump, I think we could see him kicked out. But that's a totally fair point about Epstein. If he goes out and he starts spilling the beans, that's bad for Trump. So he kind of has, oddly enough, Patel does seem to have some leverage here, but we will see. We've got one more story for you this evening. Take a look at this.
Your piece doesn't mess around. You call it an illegal deal. You say the ideal scenario is a trial that puts some Hollywood executives and filmmakers or financiers on display.
So what's your concern here? Is it that they're going to kill movie theaters? Is that it's going to make it harder for the talent and content creators to compete? Who suffers?
Well, ultimately, it will destroy Hollywood.
Netflix has just announced that they will move to buy Warner Brothers film and streaming assets for over $70 billion. According to Matt Stoller, you just saw there in that CNBC interview, that deal would destroy Hollywood. But in order to complete the deal, Netflix might have to face off against the Trump administration. And we'll explain why in a moment, but Cenk, your 2 cents here.
Yeah, so Matt Stoller is a great and really smart progressive. Elizabeth Warren is also on his side and agrees with this. I think they're wrong. I hope this deal goes through, and there's a reason for that. The reason is who else might buy Warner Brothers? That would be much, much worse. In fact, they're working behind the scenes to kill this deal right now as we speak. I want to tell you about that in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what you need to know about the deal. Warner Brothers Discovery put itself up for sale in October of this year. The 3 main bidders were Netflix, Paramount, and Comcast NBC. Now that Netflix has been declared the winner for now, politicians on both the left and the right are warning against this merger. Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner wrote, "These blanks want to kill movies so they can get richer and richer. This merger needs to be stopped." Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren stated, "A Netflix Warner Brothers would create one massive media giant with control of close to half of the streaming market. It could force you into higher prices, fewer choices over what and how you watch, and may put American workers at risk." As for conservatives, 2 days before the deal was officially confirmed, Senator Mike Lee stated, "Learning about Netflix's ambition to buy its real competitive threat, WBD's streaming business, should send alarm to antitrust enforcers around the world. This potential transaction, if it were to materialize, would raise serious competition questions, perhaps more so than any transaction I've seen in about a decade." And the Trump administration has already made its feelings known. The Trump administration views the deal with heavy skepticism, a senior administration official told CNBC on Friday morning. And that's because, Jank, I know we're short on time, so I want to bring you in here. It's because Larry Ellison, the Ellisons behind Paramount, who just acquired CBS, who installed Barry Weiss as editor-in-chief of CBS News, and have a clear objective of pushing things to the right in the media. They want this. They're going to work behind the scenes to try to kill this still. So, Jank, what do you think people should be concerned about? How should progressives and the left and everybody be approaching this deal?
So a lot of those folks saying that this deal shouldn't go through, I'm fans of. I think they're good people, and I think they've been antitrust all along, and I think they're coming at it from an honest perspective. Mike Lee, the Republican, less so, probably working for, honestly, the interests of Israel. And the Republicans in the Trump White House might also kill the deal because of that. So if you're wondering why, so the Ellisons that are thinking of, that are trying very, very, very hard to buy Warner Brothers instead, have said kind of publicly that they support Israel and they think that the news operations they buy should support Israel. So and so they already bought CBS and they put Barry Weiss, probably the most pro-Israel person in media, in charge of CBS News. And Discovery also owns CNN. Now they're breaking the two apart. They're doing two different parts of the company, and Netflix would be buying the part without CNN, but Paramount, that's the Ellisons now, would like to buy the whole operation, including CNN. And so apparently they didn't offer a good enough price, but so now they're trying to use their political influence. So they're going to the Trump White House and saying, remember, we own you, so kill this merger and approve our merger. By the way, think about how anti-free market and anti-capitalist that is, if you're on the right or really anywhere in the political spectrum. So the company should take a worse offer because the guys giving a worse price are connected to Israel, and they want to use that to influence Trump to have the company forced to take a lower price instead. So that's why this story is really interesting, because there's good guys and bad guys who agree here that this deal shouldn't happen. But I think the good guys are missing the larger picture. And I'm all for antitrust, but there's a million monopolies you could break up. And most importantly, the pharmacy benefit managers, the health insurance companies, the drug companies, et cetera, all the people that are ripping us off every single day to the tune of billions of dollars. And you're gonna go help Paramount buy this instead? Because I got news for all those guys, Elizabeth Warren, et cetera. If you block this deal, I guarantee you Paramount buys them. I guarantee it. And then it's gonna be much worse. And it doesn't help you with your antitrust anyway. So that's just another giant media company, but owned by Zionists who demand biased coverage and destroy their news organizations.
Yeah, at first you have like natural skepticism about any merger and concern about any merger. And then when I looked into the details and saw that Paramount wanted it, and they're gonna probably lobby the administration to reject this deal or stop it from happening, that gets me concerned, because I know that this Trump administration and the regulatory agencies and the administration would greenlight a Paramount acquisition of Warner. And then they, like you said, they want CNN too. So we just talked about that story with Jeremy Diamond earlier in the hour. kiss those stories goodbye. The few good foreign policy stories they do, gone. There's no way it would look anything like it is now, and it's already bad. It would get even worse. But the Trump administration would probably rather have the Ellisons in charge of CNN as well, rather than Netflix just taking the entertainment side of Warner.
Yeah, so David Ellison is running Skydance that bought Paramount and wants to buy Warner Brothers that includes CNN, right? So his father's Larry Ellison, who's financing all of this. Larry Ellison's the founder of Oracle. He's also the guy that has been revealed to be the #1 donor to the IDF. He's gave $60 million in charity in the middle of a genocide, so the IDF could murder more Palestinians. And Larry Ellison's also the guy who legally bribed Marco Rubio $5 million after having a meeting with him and making sure that he was going to be pro-Israel for the rest of his career. And then he emailed the Israeli ambassador and said, don't worry, I paid Marco Rubio $5 million. He's now pro-Israel. So that's who these guys are. And if progressives are helping them accidentally buy the company instead, I think they're going in the wrong direction. And unfortunately, they're already on the record, and Trump could just go, oh, it's bipartisan. It definitely shouldn't be Netflix. So I'm going to give it to Paramount instead. And I'm sure he'll get more bribes from the Ellisons, et cetera, because of that. Legalized bribes and campaign contributions. And by the way, maybe not legalized ones through his meme coin and other trash that he holds. So this is a disaster. But look, at the end of the day, the only silver lining here is, what difference does it make? All these traditional news outlets are 98% trash, and no one believes them anymore anyway. All they ever do is support the wealthy and the powerful. So the quicker that they fall, probably the better off the country will be. Okay, Jordan, you're awesome. We appreciate you, brother. People check out the Insurgents podcast. And when we come back, I'm gonna do the revolution. And I've got some amazing updates for you guys. And I'm every time I see what you guys have done on your own, I'm blown away by it. So let's give you all that when we return. All right, welcome to the revolution. I've got my Operation Hope shirt on today. That's where this segment came out of. So it's of course an effort to unite left, right, and center to take back our government. This isn't so that we agree on all the issues, but it is so that we can actually have an honest government that serves the people. And clearly we don't have that now. So I'm gonna show you guys some things that affect the right wing as well in a minute. And I'm gonna show you something that proves spectacularly that we don't control our own government. That's also coming up in a minute. But I want to start with something that's awesome. What we're doing here is we're crowdsourcing the revolution. So we're asking you guys, it's of course a political revolution and not a physical or violent one. So we're asking you guys to put together things that might be able to help us track who the good guys and bad guys are in politics and begin to effectuate change. So along those lines, I found out today that Aaron Baker, who is one of the folks out there that are participating in this, created this tracker in Trello. That's a project management software. And it allows people to see the status of the bills in Congress that pertain to the pillars of the populist plank. So the populist plank is, banning private equity from buying residential real estate to bring down housing prices, lowering drug prices, increasing wages, anti-war, anti-corruption, and paid family leave. And as Aaron found out, there are bills that are related to that in Congress now. So, and I went on that link, and all the links we'll put in the description box if you're watching this later on YouTube. And so one of the bills is, of course, unsurprisingly, introduced by Bernie Sanders, right? But then one of the other bills on paid family leave was introduced by a Republican senator from Nebraska, Deb Fischer. I was like, really? So, we'd have to look into that and to see if it's a real paid family leave bill or if it's some sort of trick, right? But if a Republican from Nebraska is supporting paid family leave and it's a real bill, great, wonderful, let's jump in it, right? So I'm super happy to give Republicans credit when they do the right thing. That would be amazing, right? So I love that project. That's a beautiful project. And so we've got another project, corruptionwatch.us, that's now put in all the legislators, all their funding, and all their bills. The next part's really hard there, where we try to sort out and see, do the donors match their votes, right? And we're in the middle of that project. And again, it's you guys. I told you, like, we at the Young Turks, we try our hardest, but we don't have enough resource to be able to do all this on our own. And boom, you guys jump in and start creating this beautiful change and allowing people to track this stuff. And Aaron, I learned from your project. And so want to look into those more and see if we should support any of those bills or all of those bills. So the populist plank is super popular. I so far, literally no one that we've asked has disagreed with it. And you guys are reaching out to your state reps, to your national reps, and they're signing on. In fact, I think I have an update on that in a second as well. So way to go, guys. Great job crowdsourcing. Now, I promised you guys something that shows that the American government is not on our side. And so, unfortunately, it's on the one issue where it's most brazen. They are not on our side when it comes to so many things. They're always on the donors' side, no matter who the donors happen to be. But in the case of Israel, they really take it over the top. So I wrote about a story that had come out where the Israeli settlers had done yet another terrible act, and in the story they mentioned, oh, by the way, Israeli settlers have beat 6 Americans to death in the last couple of years. And wait, did you ever hear about that in the news other than from us? And maybe a couple other good places like Drop Site News, Breaking Points, and stuff like that. So all the honest people are covering it, Dave Smith, etc. But of course, traditional media is like, shh. But when you look into the details, that's where it's amazing. And I said there was no accountability. And so somebody on social media said, on X particularly, said, Grok, is this really true, right? There's no, as saying like, there's no way that that's true, right? So Grok wrote this. Based on reports from sources like Al Jazeera, Truth Out, and Arab Center DC, here are the documented cases of US citizens killed by Israeli forces or settlers since 2020, last 5 years as of December 2025. Repercussions were limited to US calls for Israeli investigations with no charges or sanctions reported. So yes, I was 100% right. There's never been any accountability. I'm gonna give you the specifics in a second. But the part I was wrong about is that it's a higher number. Now it's because it's a longer year range that Grok used, but great, wonderful. That he's actually getting the truth to people who are like trying to pretend to do propaganda, right? So get a load of this, okay? So Grok listed the cases. Omar Assad, January 2022, West Bank, died after IDF detention. US sought probe. Israel found no link, no action. So a US citizen is killed by the IDF in detention. The US asks for a probe and Israel goes, no, shut up. We're not taking any action at all. You'll see that that is a pattern here. Shireen Abu Akleh killed May 22nd, 2022 in West Bank, I should say. A journalist shot by the IDF. US resisted FBI probe, no charges. You didn't read that wrong. Our own government told the FBI, do not probe an American journalist being murdered by Israel. This is amazing. That's our government saying, no, you are to work for Israel, not for America. Now, when the Saudis murdered an American journalist, it was the biggest news story in the world, and it should have been. And we were furious, and there was calls for accountability for Biden, Trump, et cetera. They did nothing ultimately, right? But people were outraged by that. The Israelis kill an American journalist, and it was an assassination. And CNN confirmed it, the American government confirmed it, but our own government says, shut up. FBI, don't dare investigate this murder, because it's the Israelis who did it, and we're owned by the Israelis. Stand down. They're allowed to murder any American they like. Again, hyperbole? No. Let me keep reading the list. So far, 2 for 2, no accountability, active blocking of investigations on behalf of Israel. Okay, next, Tawfiq Ajak, I'll hurry up here. January 2024, West Bank, teen shot by forces/settler. US demanded investigation, none concluded. Mohammed Kadur, February 2024, West Bank, teen shot by forces. US called for accountability, no response. They don't even give us a response. That's how little respect they have for us. Jacob Flickinger, April 2024, Gaza, aid worker in airstrike. Israel dismissed officers, no US sanctions. But let's pause there. That's the only one where there's any shred of accountability, where at least the officers who murdered him were dismissed. They weren't arrested, there was no extradition, there was no nothing, right? But at least they were dismissed. Why? Let me read you his name again, Jacob Flickinger. He's the only non-Muslim American on the list. So if you're a not Muslim American, we care a smidge about you. Okay, but we're not gonna call for arrest of anyone. That's ridiculous. It's beloved Israel. They can still murder you, but the officer who ordered it is gonna get to retire and have his pension and probably get hired by someone else in Israel as a hero. All right, Aishanur Agi, September 2024, West Bank, activists shot at protests, US deemed unjustified, no probe. Kamal Jawad, October 2024, killed in an airstrike, US expressed alarm, no follow-up. Amir Rabi, April 25, West Bank, teen shot by forces, US offered condolences, no accountability. Saifullah Musalet, July 2025, West Bank, beaten by settlers to death, US urged probe, unclear outcome. Sources note at least 9 to 10 cases since 2022 with patterns of impunity, exact lists vary. Yeah, that's not a pattern of impunity. That is 100% or 98% impunity. Yeah, so now, for some, you might look at that and go, well, they're just Muslim Americans. Think about how devastating that is for Muslim Americans. That, oh, yeah, we say in America, equality and justice for all. But if another government kills you, we don't really count you as an American. We're not gonna do any accountability, let alone if it's Israel. Now reverse it. Imagine the Palestinians had murdered 10 Jewish Americans. What do you think America would have done? Do you think they would have said, oh, Palestinian Authority says there's no accountability, nobody's gonna get arrested? Yeah, that's okay, no big deal. Kill them all you like. You know that's not what would have happened. You know there would have been hellfire, and we probably would have destroyed half of Gaza or half of the West Bank. And we should protect our citizens. I don't care if they're Jewish American, Muslim American, Christian American, or any other kind of Americans. And so, and when we do that, we should not be, by the way, we shouldn't wipe out anyone, okay? We should ask for justice and only justice. We shouldn't ask for anything beyond that. But here, we're not, our own government won't even ask for justice when our own citizens are murdered. It's amazing, it's amazing. So don't tell me Israel doesn't control our government. That list is definitive proof that Israel completely controls the US government. Anything else is absurdity, absurdity. Why wouldn't we ask for accountability for the murder of our own citizens? Of course they control us. So it's disgusting, I can't stand it. So they say, oh, people will say, oh, why are you so obsessed with Israel? Well, first of all, they're doing a genocide with our money, that period, okay? But if you need to go beyond that, what other country controls us this unilaterally? None, zero. Does Poland have this kind of power? Does Jamaica have this kind of power? Does another economic superpower, Japan, Germany, China, have this kind of power? No, only Israel. So I'm sick of it. I'm disgusted by it. I can't stand it anymore. And I don't care what they call me. And that's what they always do, right? The way that they have this control is anytime anyone opposes their control, anti-Semite, destroy them, ruin their careers. You have no idea the attacks we're getting behind the scenes, let alone in front of the scenes, right? So we have got to get rid of Israeli control in this country. We've got to get rid of all the control that all the donors have in this country. Now the oil companies are driving us into war for Venezuela and the defense contractors. Why? Why do we have to die for ExxonMobil? Why do we have to die for United Health because they won't cover health? Because we're in privatized health insurance and 70,000 Americans die every year because they don't have health insurance. Why do we have to die for Israel? Why do we have to die for all these donors? It's disgusting that this so-called democracy has been hijacked by the most corrupt people on earth. All right, that's what we're trying to fix here. All right, and now back to the updates, some good ones in here. And I love whenever you guys work together from all stripes, all Americans. So Henry provided this update about the state captain project because we're trying to get the different states to organize as well. And he explains, we had a state captain meeting on Monday. We set up a signal chat. People talked about different efforts they've been doing, contacting volunteers and elected officials. Tony talked about his meeting with Paige Boschman and the fact that she agreed to sign on to the populist plank. God, I love that. There was also a lot of discussion about specific candidates to put pressure on. In New Hampshire, there's an open race for a Senate seat, an open race for one of the congressional districts, and a primary challenge in the other one. Henry, way to think this through, way to organize this, and all of you guys. And Tony, way to reach out to your reps and get them to sign on to the populist plank. I love that. So keep going, guys. And he went on, there's a lot of candidates to put pressure on there, referring to New Hampshire. In Massachusetts, there's a competitive Senate election. Also, Ayanna Pressley is the rep for several of our volunteers, and she may be willing to sign the populist plank. Crystal talked about how she's able to personally contact Lisa Murkowski. That'd be great to get a Republican. I mean, Lisa Murkowski is a kind of an independent who caucuses with the Republicans, was a Republican for a long time. She's in the US Senate, of course. That'd be great to get her. Theoretically, the Republicans also agree with the populist plank. Their voters totally agree. Their politicians are a different question. Same for ours. Ayanna Pressley, there is no reason why she shouldn't sign the populist plank. None. She's a member of the squad. Let's see what happens. Way to go, guys. Keep going. Okay, punk rock progressive has an idea to send to members of Congress. So let's check that out. He says, I recently started sending a draft bill summary to members of Congress that would remove their taxpayer-funded healthcare and require all members of Congress to acquire their healthcare through the ACA marketplace like every other American who doesn't have employee-provided healthcare. I explained the obvious advantage of how it would motivate their desire to either repair the shortcomings of the ACA or preferably consider the merits of a single-payer healthcare system. He continues, so far I've only sent out the draft to Ro Khanna because I feel he would at least understand the bill. And my own representative, James Clyburn, where I understand there's no chance of consideration. And that's, I'll interject here, that's because Clyburn is one of the most corporate Democrats in the country. Anyway, any other ideas on how to reach all reps? I plan on sending the draft to MTG too, since can't believe I'm even saying this, she's become more aware of the world around her, but it can't hurt. Thanks, full disclosure, I had ChatGPT write the bill. In summary, I figured if members of Congress could use it, why couldn't some schmo like me use it? I checked it over and it looked good to me. Guy, so that's great. And look, your bill doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay. You get them the bill and their job is to, have their staff craft it and then put it out there, right? So is that a bill that's likely to pass? Absolutely not. They're never going to take away their own health care. They have amazing health care in Congress. The scraps are for the rest of us, are for the masses, for the plebeians, right? So now having said that, I love that you did it because all you need is a Republican and a Democrat to co-sponsor a bill to get it introduced. It at least embarrasses the rest of them, right? okay, why aren't you doing this? And yeah, if you took their insurance away and made them go through ACA, they would want to fix that so quick. And then would it, get them to do Medicare for all or any kind of universal health care? No, because then the insurance companies and the drug companies would come in with unprecedented bribes, so much bribes, they wouldn't have to work for health insurance at all. They wouldn't have to worry about it. But still a great idea. And this is how you expose politicians for the crooks that they are. All right, now Cicero is encouraging conservatives to leave messages for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker. Let's listen in on what he has to say. He says, I went on Marjorie Taylor Greene's YouTube channel and left a comment encouraging her to stay in the fight. By the way, this is me saying I agree with that. Continuing back with Cicero, I also left one on Tucker Carlson's channel encouraging him to run. Something to realize about the right is the key to the right is that they tend to like gender roles, and right-wing women want men to be strong and defend them. So it's probably extremely hurtful for MTG to have the man she was fighting for turn on her and call her a traitor. The reason I want Tucker to run is because I want populist conservatives in Congress to have strong male leadership. And he said, here's a link to both of their channels. I want anyone else here who's conservative to leave a comment. So we're putting those up there, but you could also see the links in the description box. So we'll always have those. Okay, so look, I think encouraging conservative commentators and politicians to do the right thing is beautiful, great. And you do it any way you're comfortable with. It's not my business to tell you how to do it, right? And everybody has their own language, their own references, their own priorities. So if you think that messaging is gonna work to get them to do things we agree with, fantastic. And look, so why have I been more open to Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because she's been honest and she's been more open to the American people and to serving them and not the donor class. Why have I been more open to Tucker? Because Tucker is being honest about Israel and the Epstein files and so many other things that we now agree on. And then what I thought one of the most amazing things that happened, and I know since it was related to us, it wasn't reported anywhere else, God forbid. But Marjorie Taylor Greene signed on to Ro Khanna's bill to lower drug prices. Now we're way past Epstein files in Israel and all that. We're into domestic issues. And so that was great. It was kind of an awakening. That's why I didn't want her to leave. She's one of the few honest members of Congress. Well, by the way, on the things we massively disagree on, at least she's still honest, right? So for example, earlier in the show, we did the story, and one of you guys reminded us about January 6th, that she said that if she had done January 6th, they would have finished the job, right? So that's obviously something that I massively disagree with. But is she being honest there? Yeah, she's giving you her honest opinion. And I'll take an honest person over these corrupt politicians any day, because they're gonna tell you what they think to your face, whether they agree or disagree. And then we can have debates like Americans in a democracy, like we're supposed to. But when you realize you deal with honest actors, you realize, oh, we actually agree on a lot more than we realize. The job of a lot of these politicians and the media is to drive a wedge between us so we don't realize that we actually agree, I think, on about 70% of the issues. All right, so great job, Cicero. Mark Card Shark is proposing a unification ticket. This is a very interesting idea. Obviously, people have thought about this in a couple of different ways, but now I'm a little bit more open to it than I have been in the past. So here, let's listen to Mark. Since we're now in somewhat of an agreement with conservatives, take it a step further, a unification ticket with true populists from both sides who could run on those issues that are in agreement, as well as the ability to come together and to debate, negotiate, and compromise on issues that we are not in agreement. Working together for the American people will stifle corporate rule to solve agreed upon issues quickly and force a realization on the American people that division does not have to be the norm. When this comes to fruition, TYT will go down in history for bringing the two sides together to defeat our oppressors. And he wrote that in tyt.com/ideas. So, okay, look, in the past, I've been against a third party because it costs so much money to set up. Used to be about 10 million, now it might be close to 20 million to run a presidential campaign because you have to get onto the ballot in 50 states, and it is very difficult, right? And takes up a lot of resources. So having said that, I don't know, man. Like, I think the right thing to do is take over for now when we get into the politics of it, outside of the the unified revolution. I think my thesis has been the best way to do it is through the Democratic primaries. Like Trump took over the Republican Party through the Republican primaries. He was an outsider, and given enough press coverage, he was able to win. So we can get someone to get enough press coverage. I think we could do that in the Democratic primary. But if it turns out we can't, then we'll have no choice left but to start a third party that's a unification party. And Mark Card-Shark, your comment got me thinking about it more. And I think that the way that if I were going to set up that, if I was going to help set up that party, what I would say is, let's promise the American people that we are going to do all the things we agree on first. Let's promise that we're going to take no corporate PAC money, no foreign government money, voters first, Americans first. And on the things we disagree on, we'll have some sort of system, as you're suggesting here, for how to resolve those. But we're not going to prioritize the things we disagree on, which is what politicians and the media do all the time. So you lose focus on the things we agree on. Because the things we agree on, the donor class doesn't want. They don't want you to have higher wages because that drives up their costs. They don't want you to pay lower drug prices because that lowers their revenue. They don't want you to pay lower gas prices because that lowers the oil company's revenue. If you start a war with a large oil producer like Iraq or Venezuela, not only do you get to steal their oil afterwards, but in the midst of that, oil prices shoot up. And for the same exact cost, their revenue goes sky high. Defense contractors' revenue goes sky high. So that is why all of our politicians, not all, but almost all of them, are scum who raised their hand, who said, I will be bribed. I'm open for bribery. I'm open for an open auction. Please, oil companies, defense contractors, Israel, whoever it might be, come bribe me, and I will do whatever you want, and I'll bury what the voters want. I'll bury it so deep they'll never ever get it. And honestly, that's been our government for at least the last 40 years, since the Supreme Court legalized bribery back in 1976 and 78. So that's why we got to get our government back. And the way to do the primary way to do that is to get a president on our side. And not just because the president can do executive orders, but the president has the bully pulpit. If we have a president that's on our side and honest and smart and strategic and strong, you would be shocked at what we could get done. Absolutely shocked, because our whole lives we've grown up in a system that is meant to depress you, make you cynical and pessimistic, so that you lose all hope and you give up. Do not give in to that. If you give in to that, they win. So whether it's through the Democratic Party, or by the way, I mean, God knows, maybe populist right does something interesting, right? Within the Republican Party. But if not, a combined ticket, it would be much harder to put together. But at this point, it is not impossible. And whoever it is, 2028 is non-negotiable. We must win. Because if we don't win, the window is going to close. AI, Palantir, and the establishment is going to grow more and more oppressive. They're going to start surveillance inside America that is going to be unprecedented. They're openly talking about how they practiced in Gaza, how to surveil everyone. And you see what they did in Gaza. So that's their laboratory, and the rest of the world is next. We can't let them do that. We have to win in 28. All right, last one here. CureCom is working to stop the ICE raids, and they wrote in, Cure Corn. I live in Chicago, and this is not my idea, but I figured I'd come over here to share that what my and other organizations are collaborating on to stagger or stop the ICE raids from continuing in our communities. ICE contracts with AT&T for their communications. If we have 100,000 or more people pledged not to buy AT&T to upgrade through the holidays, we think the pain of that will be greater than the pain of cutting ICE contract. their ICE contract, which is our demand. We are still formulating how we're going to increase the pressure if they don't do it by the holidays. But I thought to share it here because I keep hearing the Noble Mobile ads, and I was thinking there might be a good collaboration there as well. In the meanwhile, if you want to sign the pledge, you can text drop ICE to 51767. That's drop ICE to 51767. Okay, so guys, the ICE raids, I think that's a political issue. I think that is one that separates us. I'm on the left, and so I'm totally against those ICE raids. But I know some on the right are in favor of them. To me, that's a super important issue as someone who cares about, our government. I'm not sure that it's a revolution issue, except for the ICE agents being masked and no badges. That's un-American, and we shouldn't allow that, okay? So if you're gonna do the ICE raids and you're proud of it, show your faces, show your badges, okay? But thank you for bringing that up for the people who care about that issue, including myself. And we even, because it was an interesting suggestion and a good suggestion, we let the people at Noble Mobile know about it too. So I don't want to get into an ad here for our sponsors. So, but I appreciate you pointing that out. But what I'm doing instead is publicizing your project, which is Drop ICE. You text it at 51767, right? So, but most importantly, guys, look at all these great ideas at tyt.com/ideas. And look at me recognizing them, us recognizing them, and bringing them to you. So we can do this together. No way that it's easy, but nothing worth doing is ever easy like that. You know how the real world works. When power is entrenched, it does not want to move, and it constantly adds more power to its own power. It uses that power to gain more and more leverage. And so that's how they took over politics. That's how they took over the media. Now it's our job to unify enough people to create enough leverage to be able to fight against almost all the powerful elites. And that is a hell of a fight. That is a revolutionary fight. And that's the fight we have to do. And if the left tries it on its own, it will not be able to succeed. If the right tries it on its own, it will not be able to succeed. For the first time in our lives, we have to unite to beat back the powerful elites who have grabbed control of our government. You know what I think? I think the number one way to do that is to get money out of politics, because that is the core issue that really is driving all of this. But I appreciate all of you guys that are chiming in, that are making this work. So you know what? As I part here, I'm going to read two more suggestions that just came in while we were doing the show. In fact, I'll read you three comments real quick. Benjamin says, then if we could connect all these politicians and companies to products to boycott, hit them where it hurts. Yeah, I hear you. We should put a lot more energy into using our economic power, not just in the case of boycotting Israel, but boycotting companies that bribe our politicians to their own advantage. So it's a good idea. These are coming from our members on tyt.com. AKA Delaware Dragon writes in, could we add banning private equity from buying healthcare service providing companies as another populist plank? So one thing at a time, it's a perfectly good idea. Let's push these 6 that we have now, and then maybe we come back around to that. If we can do it in real estate, then your idea is going to go to the top of the list, right? Because that means that's a thing that can get done. So, but private equity is super powerful. They are the richest people in the world. So getting them to stop buying residential real estate is already going to be enormously difficult. Let's do that one first, and if we can, then we'll move on, but great idea. Last one, Don Dada Dragon said, Cenk, I found out the representative of the district that represents my old base, Joint Base Lewis McCord near Seattle, takes AIPAC money to the tune of $317,000. She represents 40,000 of my brothers and sisters in arms. Do you think exposing this fact is better than asking him to outright stop accepting bribes? I noticed she's taken an additional $30,000 since the summer. I don't think my voice will honestly change her mind. Well, you could do both. First, ask her to stop taking the money. And then when she doesn't do it, which she of course will not do it, then yeah, you should. Look, you're a veteran. Maybe you go to the base and you ask them to stop supporting her. I mean, you can't politicize things in the military, I know that. I don't know how it would work, but you're gonna have better ideas than me. But yeah, you should definitely out her. Everyone should out every representative taking AIPAC money. Because if you take AIPAC or Israeli lobby money, you're literally saying, I'm gonna work for Israel. Those PACs are to support Israel, period. Why would we want you to work for Israel when you're supposed to be our representative? Why would I want you to work for any other country? That's insane. So it's the only reason why people don't think it's insane, because our media goes, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. No. Millions of dollars given to these politicians won't affect them. They're just voting for Israel because they happen to also coincidentally love everything that Israel does. What a bunch of pathetic liars. How absurd that they claim to be in news. That's not news. That's junk propaganda to protect the powerful. Okay, well, somebody just wrote in, so I'll do that one too. Panic on Funkatron says, easy thing for all of us can do. Anytime a politician texts you, tell them you want them to go on TYT for an interview to see where they stand on the issues. People do read those texts, so the more of us who do it, the better. Wow, I never even thought of that. That's a good idea. And I didn't know, I read it blind, so I didn't know you were gonna tell them to come on TYT for an interview. I'll take it. But there's a lot of things you text back, and they're not all profane. You ask them for real things. Ask them to sign the populist plank. I mean, this brother's trying to help out TYT, right? And I'm redirecting it. But yes, ask him to go on TYT because we'll give him an honest interview. Ask him to sign the populist plank. Ask him to support our voters and not another country and not corporations. All right, another good idea. Love it. Okay, you guys are amazing. I can go all weekend. And thank you for caring enough to want a revolution, to get our democracy and our government back for Americans, for us, the voters. All right, for the members, because I am incorrigible, knee surgery and all, I will do a bonus episode for you guys. And we'll do story time. You know what? I'll tell you how the surgery went. So hit the join button below if you care about that. But I tell fun stories for the members. Or if you're watching anywhere else, tyt.com/join. Much love, guys. I'll see you there.